Chapter 445 Murong Yun. A faint scream came from behind Wang Lin, and then a happy laugh followed it. Although there was no speech, Wang Lin could clearly hear one line within the laughter. There is someone to play with me. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. He tried to scan the grain of dirt in his hand with his divine sense, but he found that there was a force stopping him. Wang Lin frowned. Then he activated some celestial spiritual energy and infused it into his divine sense. His divine sense spread out again, and this time it broke through the force and entered the grain. The moment his divine sense entered the grain, he heard the sound of a mirror cracking. Then the grain cracked open and a blue flame appeared in his hand. When he saw this flame, Wang Lin's body trembled. Soul piece! This was the soul piece of a mortal, and it contained a hint of fire element. The owner of this soul piece never cultivated and was only a mortal. That scorched earth is made up of these grains of dirt, and every grain is a soul piece. All of them should be mortal souls that couldn't cultivate, and that child is some kind of spirit body formed by all of these soul pieces combined. No wonder the celestial sword couldn't destroy it. Wang Lin's expression was even more gloomy. He looked at the flame one more time before putting it back inside the grain. The moment the blue flame went back inside, the crack on the grain sealed itself. He waved his right hand, and without him stopping it, the grain flew back toward the scorched earth. Situnan said that the soul pieces are inside the cultivation planet crystal. So why did I find soul pieces right at the entrance? Could my soul piece also be inside this kind of life form? Wang Lin frowned and flew forward. The Suzaku tomb was too big. After leaving behind the scorched earth, Wang Lin picked a direction and quickly flew that way. The landscape of the Suzaku tomb was no different from outside. There were mountains and rivers, and the spiritual energy here was very dense. The spiritual energy here was several times more dense than outside. Even most sects' spiritual energy gathering formations couldn't produce this kind of effect. 3 days later, Wang Lin was moving like a meteor at low altitude toward the inner part of the tomb. However, after 3 days, Wang Lin still hadn't found the border. Right now he was flying over a plain. The green grass of the plain seemed to go on forever. In the past 3 days, he hadn't seen one cultivator. While he was flying, his expression changed and he turned around. He saw 2 cultivators flying across the sky like lightning in the distance. One was male and the other one was a female. When the 2 of them saw Wang Lin, they were startled. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he hit his cultivation level. He now looked like someone who had just reached the soul formation stage. 2 divine senses swept past him as if scouting him out. Afterward, the 2 of them seemed to have relaxed a bit and slowly flew towards him. The 2 of them stopped several hundred feet away from Wang Lin. Neither of them looked very old. The male was a young man wearing a green robe. This robe was messy. It had holes and even some blood marks that had already gone black. On his sleeve was a mysterious symbol. It was clearly the symbol of a certain sect. As for the woman, she was a bit ugly. There were countless pockmarks on her face. If a mortal saw her in the middle of the night, they would mistake her for a monster. Although her face wasn't pretty, her body had a womanly charm. If you ignored her face, she definitely had a certain charm to her. The 2 of them were several hundred feet away from Wang Lin when the male shouted, "I am Murong Yun. I wonder what your name is." Wang Lin remained calm and let out a smile. "I am Xing Mu." Xing Mu was the name Wang Lin used when he entered the soul refining sect. Wang Lin was able to see through their cultivation levels at a glance. The young man was at the mid-stage of soul formation while the woman was at the early stage. Outside the Suzaku tomb they could be considered strong, but inside the Suzaku tomb where so many have died they seemed a bit weak. They were only able to come inside because they were already in the country of Suzaku when the Suzaku tomb opened up. If they had arrived a few days later, then there was no way they would had a turn to enter. Murong Yun carefully examined Wang Lin and said, "Has fellow cultivator just reached the soul formation stage?" The woman looked at Wang Lin with a hint of coldness. Wang Lin faintly smiled. "That is correct. I have just reached the soul formation stage." Murong Yun carefully examined Wang Lin. After confirming that he really was at the early stage of soul formation, he relaxed a bit and said, "Fellow cultivator, this place is simply too dangerous. How about we team up? The more people we have, the safer it will be, and we will have a higher chance of getting our soul pieces back." Wang Lin pondered a bit and said, "After hearing fellow cultivator speak, you seem confident in getting your soul piece back." As Wang Lin spoke, his eyes lit up without anyone noticing. Murong Yun laughed and said, "Fellow Qing, you don't know, but I was among the first wave that entered the Suzaku tomb. I personally saw how Qian Feng and the 8-leaf shamans of the Forsaken Immortal clan entered the intersection. If it wasn't T for the fact that my cultivation level isn't T high enough, I would have already gone inside the intersection." "Oh," Wang Lin faintly smiled. "How did Qian Feng and them enter?" Murong Yun let out a mysterious smile and said, "I can only tell Brother Qing that the entrance is an altar. They searched for a very long time and finally went into the altar. However, the location of the altar is remote and very dangerous. We need to wait for more people before we go, then we will have a better chance." Wang Lin's eyes were calm. He looked at this person, faintly smiled, and nodded. As the two were talking, the woman next to Murong Yun said, "No need to speak any more nonsense." With that, she flew away. Looking at the woman's back, Murong Yun let out a sigh and said, "She looks like a great beauty from the back. What a pity." With that, he clasped his hands at Wang Lin and followed behind her. Wang Lin rubbed his chin and slowly followed behind the two of them. He would occasionally place his gaze on Murong Yun. The mark on his sleeve and the black blood marks on his clothes made him ponder. As they flew, Wang Lin calmly asked, "Fellow cultivator Murong, what kind of danger is there at the altar?" A hint of fear appeared in Murong Yun's eyes as he took a deep breath and said, "I only saw it from a distance. 3 of the 8-leaf shamans and 2 soul transformation old monsters died. Even after they all died, I never spotted the enemy." Wang Lin revealed a smile that was not a smile and said, with a hint of mockery, "Fellow cultivation Murong's luck was pretty good." Murong Yun was startled when he heard this. Then he let out a wary smile and said, "I was really far away and escaped right away, so I wasn't caught in the fight. However, one thing I'm sure about is that there is a powerful existence there that is very dangerous. We need more people to have a chance at entering." Wang Lin looked at Murong Yun with a strange smile on his face and no longer spoke. Murong Yun's heart sank. He took another good look at Wang Lin before turning around and carrying on. The 3 of them flew very quickly across the plain with the ugly woman in the front. In the afternoon of the second day, the woman stopped. She looked into the distance and coldly said, "There is someone up ahead." Just as she spoke, a sword pierced through the air and swept toward them. As the fierce sword energy closed in, a cold aura surrounded the area. A white flying sword quickly closed in. The person on the sword was an old man with gray hair wearing a gray robe, but with eyes were like lightning. His expression was very gloomy and kept on looking behind him. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He was able to tell at a glance what was wrong. A bolt of twisting lightning was chasing the old man. The bolt of lightning seemed to be alive and was closely chasing after him. As he was escaping, the old man's divine sense swept past the 3 of them, and he exclaimed when his gaze landed on Wang Lin. Wang Lin had seen this old man before. He was one of the 16 soul transformation cultivators outside the Suzaku tomb. His cultivation level was at the early stage of soul transformation. He didn't stop and quickly said, "Fellow cultivators, retreat quickly. That thing is very strange." Just at this moment, Murong Yun casually looked at the thing that was chasing the old man. His gaze was very ordinary, but the bolt of lightning immediately stopped and let out a roar of discontent before running around and leaving. Everything happened very quickly. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Lin had been paying special attention to Murong Yun, he wouldn't have seen what just happened. The lightning quickly disappeared. Even the old man on the flying sword was startled. He stopped, looked behind him, and his eyebrows knit tightly together. Murong Yun moved up a few feet. He clasped his hands and said, "Junior Murong Yun greets Senior." The old man coldly looked at Murong Yun and ignored him. His gaze landed on Wang Lin as he clasped his hands and said, "Many thanks, fellow cultivator Seng." After thinking for a while, he couldn't figure out why that thing had stopped chasing him. In the end, he thought that it had something to do with this Seng Niu. After all, Seng Niu was very famous, so he had to have some powerful spells. The moment he said fellow cultivator Seng, the ugly-looking woman suddenly turned around and carefully looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin faintly smiled and shook his head. "That is not me." The old man's eyes faintly narrowed, and he smiled. "Let's not talk about this. I am Mu Yunhai. Does fellow cultivator Seng have any clues about entering the intersection of the tomb? Good night, everyone. We will meet again tomorrow. Just wait a moment, remember to like the video. Chapter Altar. Wang Lin stayed quiet and looked at Murong Yun. Mu Yunhai's heart skipped a beat. Murong Yun faintly smiled as he clasped his hands and said, Junior Murong Yun greets Senior. Mu Yunhai nodded and asked, Do you know how to enter the intersection? Murong Yun nodded and replied, Senior Mu, Junior does know the method of going in, but Senior has to promise that you will take us in as well. If Senior agrees, then I promise to tell Senior everything I know. Mu Yunhai's eyes lit up and he said, Speak. This old man agrees. Murong Hai's eyes revealed joy. Junior will lead the way. Our destination is an altar. It's the only passage into the intersection. Mu Yunhai asked, in a serious tone, Are there dangers there? Murong Yu quickly replied, There are. Junior saw several 8-leaf Forsaken Immortal clan members die. There was a total of 8 of them, but the first person to enter didn't he encounter any danger. Mu Yunhai frowned. Then he looked toward Wang Lin and asked, Fellow cultivator Seng, what do you think? Wang Lin looked at Murong Yun with a smile that was not a smile and said to Mu Yunhai, With the two of us working together, even if we can get past it, our lives shouldn't be in danger. Mu Yunhai laughed. Then he nodded and said to Murong Yun, Little brat, lead the way. Murong Yun quickly nodded. Then he looked at Wang Lin and warily smiled. Senior is definitely not a soul formation cultivator. Junior didn't he know before. I hope Senior won't blame me. With that, he flew in front. Mu Yunhai signaled Wang Lin and the two of them followed behind. As for the ugly woman, she hesitated for a bit before following them. Although Murong Yun's speed was very fast, it was still too slow in Mu Yunhai's eyes. Half an hour later, Mu Yunhai let out a snort and moved up, grabbed Murong Yun, turned toward Wang Lin and said, Fellow cultivator Sang, you and I will each take one of them and get to the altar at full speed. If we are slow and the cultivation planet crystal breaks, then all of us will die here. With that, he held Murong Yun and suddenly sped up before disappearing into the distance. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He waved his right hand, and the ugly woman was immediately surrounded by a mysterious power. Wang Lin flew off into the distance while taking her along. Is Senior Sang Niu? The woman was behind Wang Lin and a hint of her fragrance entered Wang Lin's nose. Wang Lin calmly answered, I am. The woman wondered a bit and then suddenly said, Senior, beware of Murong Yun. After that, she remained silent. Wang Lin and Mu Yunhai were very fast. With Murong Yun guiding them, they quickly crossed the plain. 3 days later, an endless mountain range appeared below them. Above the mountain range was a massive black cloud. This black cloud was constantly churning and it gave off a creepy aura. On the western side of the mountain range was an extremely tall mountain peak. Most of the peak was hidden within the black cloud, so only half of it could be seen from outside the black cloud. Under Murong Yun's guidance, Mu Yunhai charged into the black cloud. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and followed closely behind. Inside the black cloud, Wang Lin opened his mouth and spat out a black light. The black light quickly disappeared within the black cloud. Then he slapped his bag of holding and took something out. With one shake, it also disappeared within the black cloud. He did all of this very inconspicuously with the cover of the black cloud so no one detected anything. Even the woman who was next to him didn't notice because the difference in their cultivation levels was too great. The mountain in the black cloud was a bit blurry. It was as if there was something wrapped around the mountain peak, giving it an ethereal feeling. On the top of the mountain was a large platform, and at the center of the platform was a black altar. This altar was a tower with steps leading up to the top. There was a concave at the very top of the tower with black fog going inside. Mu Yunhai held Murong Yun and landed on the altar. Wang Lin landed after them. They saw dried blood marks on the altar, and the smell of blood was still lingering. They sometimes heard wails coming from the black cloud as if there were ghosts crying. After Wang Lin landed, he let go of the woman and his eyes lit up. After looking around, he saw that this place was very different from how Situnan described it. The altar that Situnan told him about was in a valley surrounded by mountains and not a mountain peak. His eyes quickly became cold. Mu Yunhai spread out his divine sense and looked around. Then he said, Junior Murong, is this the altar you were talking about? Murong Yun quickly nodded and said with confidence, Senior, this is the place. However, Senior should be careful. Aside from the first 8-leaf shaman, The ones that followed him all died mysterious deaths. Mu Yunhai looked at Murong Yun before quickly grabbing Murong Yun and pressing his hand on Murong Yun's forehead. Mu Yunhai's eyes lit up, and he whispered, "Soul!" Murong Yun let out a miserable groan, and his body began to tremble. Mu Yunhai's eyes lit up even more, and then he let go of Murong Yun after a while. Murong Yun fell down like a pile of mud. His body gave off a deathly aura and remained motionless. Fellow cultivator sang, "This person isn't he lying?" With that, he jumped up the altar. Fellow cultivator sang, "I am going to scout. Please guard me." Okay. A hint of mockery appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. Mu Yunhai arrived at the top of the altar in almost the blink of an eye. After standing there for a bit, his expression suddenly became strange. His eyes revealed a strange light as he looked at the concave on top of the altar. Shortly after, joy appeared in his eyes, and he laughed. "This is the place," fellow cultivator sang, "I'll be going ahead." With that, he walked into the center of the altar and disappeared. The ugly woman hesitated for a bit. She looked at Wang Lin and then at Murong Yun before pondering in silence. Wang Lin sneered and didn't he look toward the altar. Instead, he looked at Murong Yun and flicked a spell toward his forehead. As soon as the spell arrived, Murong Yun suddenly opened his eyes, grabbed the spell and crushed it, then he stood up and looked at Wang Lin. Black gas suddenly appeared and covered his face, then his originally handsome face became fierce. "How did you figure it out?" His voice contained a mysterious power. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he said, "I can tell you, but you have to answer a few of my questions." Murong Yun's eyes lit up and he said, "Interesting. You answer me first." Wang Lin calmly said, "All cultivators like to keep themselves clean, so they keep spare clothes in their bags of holding. Rarely anyone would appear in such a disheveled state like you." Murong sneered and said, "Just because of that." Wang Lin's expression was still calm. He stared at Murong Yun and said, "Of course there were other tells, but right now I want to know what you are." Murong Yun snorted, "I am made of soul pieces. Tell me what else gave me away." Wang Lin said, "Your clothes are far too old and not what the cultivators who just entered would wear." "What is your goal?" "I don't have a goal. I just don't want you guys to get the cultivation planet crystal." "Also, are those the only 2 points?" Murong Yun frowned. Wang Lin let out a sigh and shook his head. "The last reason is the symbol on your clothes with that." Wang Lin's right hand suddenly moved. He activated the celestial spiritual energy in his body, and then a spell containing celestial spiritual energy suddenly appeared before him. As his right hand rose, the celestial spell rushed out toward Murong Yun. Murong Yun sneered and didn't move, but at the moment the celestial spell landed, his body collapsed into strands of black gas and disappeared into the surrounding black clouds. Wang Lin didn't chase, and a hint of mockery appeared in his eyes. Soon, a scream came from within the black cloud, and the strands of black fog flew back and condensed back into Murong Yun. His expression was extremely ugly as he looked around and said to Wang Lin, "You are not a normal soul transformation cultivator?" A 30-foot-long flag flew out from the black clouds. The flag was moving like a wave inside the cloud. A large amount of soul fragments were coming in and out of the flag. There were 10 primary souls inside the black cloud with their gazes locked onto Murong Yun. Among these primary souls was a golden-purple Qilin. Its eyes revealed a fierce gaze. Wang Lin had refined the 1 billion soul flag once more on the way here with Situ Nan. He fused his other 2 flags into it, so now the Qilin and Li Yuanfeng were both primary souls of the 1 billion soul flag. Now this 1 billion soul flag had 28 primary souls. "Do you think you can trap me like this?" Murong Yun sneered and charged out once more. He turned into black fog again and flew toward Wang Lin's orifices. Wang Lin's body backed up and his eyes became cold. He raised his hand and whispered, "Seal!" At this moment, another flag flew out from the black clouds. As soon as it appeared, a large amount of restrictions flew out of it. At a very quick speed, they closed in and created a cage the size of a person, trapping all of the black fog inside. The cage quickly shrank until it was the size of a fist. This sphere was made of restrictions. The rows of restrictions completely sealed the black fog inside it. 4,000 words in a major chapter. Read an extra 1,000 words, wishing for the like button on the video to help. Chapter 447. a beauty that can be replicated. Lifeforms made of soul pieces were very hard to kill, and even if they were killed, the victims would be the owners of the soul pieces and not the lifeform. If Wang Lin were to use celestial spiritual energy and held nothing back, he could kill this thing. However, more soul pieces would come and reform this lifeform again. In a certain way, these lifeforms were undying. However, when the cultivation planet crystal shatters, these soul pieces will also collapse. No one knows whether the next lifeform they face will contain the soul pieces of their loved ones. At that moment, how would they act? If it was your own soul piece, then that would be easier because you have a mysterious connection with your soul piece. Of course, there were quite a few heartless people inside the Suzaku tomb. There were a few people who, after observing for a while and learning the secret, began a slaughter. They destroyed one soul piece after another, and then waited for the lifeform to reform by calling more soul pieces. They continued this stupid method in hopes of finding their own soul piece. Xianxia was one of them. At this very moment, Xianxia was at a mountain range in the inner section of the tomb. He was sitting outside a cave with a very gloomy expression. He was the first person to enter the Suzaku tomb, so obviously he met the lifeforms made of soul pieces. These lifeforms couldn't be killed, so in the end both cultivators and the Forsaken Immortal clan members met something like Morong Yun and rushed toward that mountain peak. There were some people that were tricked by the altar, but Qianfeng didn't fall for the trap and escaped. He spent a lot of time and effort before finally finding the real altar and entering the inner section of the Suzaku tomb. Although the inner section was smaller than the outer section, it was still very large. There were also a lot more of those lifeforms here, and some of them were very powerful. Qianfeng couldn't beat them, so he was forced to retreat. During these days in the inner section, he still couldn't find the first Suzaku's grave. As time passed, more and more cultivators and Forsaken Immortal clan members entered the inner section. Qianfeng personally saw a familiar soul transformation cultivator's eyes go dim and die after a few Forsaken Immortal clan members went all out and killed one of those lifeforms. This scene shocked everyone around. Qianfeng found out that this person's origin soul had shattered, and he had completely died. Everyone who had entered the Suzaku tomb was very smart, so they immediately understood the meaning behind this. As a result, in the battle against these lifeforms, some began to hold back, but the more they held back, the harder it was to win. It was like a dead knot. Qianfeng had been sitting outside this cave for more than half a month. His heart felt very anxious, and this irritated him greatly. He didn't know how long he had before the cultivation planet crystal collapses. If he couldn't get his soul piece back, then the only thing left for him was death. Jukizi, you old bag of bones. If you are going to die, just die. Why does everyone else have to die with you? Qianfeng clenched his teeth and punched the ground. He took a deep breath, his eyes lit up, and he looked at the cave before him. He began to silently calculate and then suddenly took out a black gourd. His right hand formed a seal and then pointed at the gourd. "Red butterfly, come out!" he said. A ray of golden light came out from the gourd and Red Butterfly appeared before Qianfeng. She was wearing a red dress, she was still as beautiful as before, and her eyes were still without any life. At this moment, the coldness and arrogance she once harbored no longer existed. What remained was a heartbreaking sorrow and indifference. This gourd was a treasure from his family that was said to have been left by an ancestor. Not only did it have its secrets, it could also store living things. Qianfeng said, "Time is up, so it should have recovered. You go lure it out." Red Butterfly didn't say a word as she slowly walked into the cave. Qianfeng took a deep breath, his hand formed a seal, and the celestial spiritual energy in his body activated. The celestial spiritual energy slowly gathered on his finger until it formed a small golden ball. Qianfeng's face was gloomy as he stared into the depths of the cave. Shortly after, a roar came from within the cave, and the ground began to tremble. Red Butterfly ran out from within the cave and stood next to Qianfeng. At the same time, a tall figure came out of the cave. This was a foot-old giant, and its body emitted black smoke. Every step it took caused the ground to shake. As the giant was walking out of the cave, Qianfeng's eyes became cold, and he pointed at the giant. The small ball on the tip of his finger shot out toward the giant. An angry roar came from the giant as its body collapsed into countless strands of black smoke to dodge the ball of light. Qianfeng shouted, "Explode!" With one word, the ball of light suddenly exploded, creating a powerful explosion that quickly spread in all directions. The entire mountain trembled and a large amount of rocks began to fall off of it. All of the strands of black smoke that escaped were destroyed without any exception. This is the 69th one already, and I still haven't found my soul piece. Qian Feng frowned. He knew that this method wasn't the best method. However, this Suzaku tomb was simply too big, and he wasn't powerful enough to go to a lot of places, so he could only use this dumb method and hope for a miracle. On the mountain with the altar in the outer section of the Suzaku tomb, Wang Lin held the sphere with the life form sealed inside and jumped down. As for the ugly woman, Wang Lin ignored her. Wang Lin's voice was calm as he said, I won't kill you, but I can seal you, and this kind of seal is permanent. Once the owners of the soul pieces die one by one as their lifespans run out, you will die a true death. Throughout these past several days in the Suzaku tomb, he had been thinking of a way to deal with these life forms. After pondering for a long time, he thought of this method. Using a large amount of restrictions to seal each of the soul pieces would create some kind of sealing effect. Then, by adding a soul fragment of the same cultivation level, it would prevent the life form from reforming again. He only needed to wait for the owners of the soul pieces inside the life form to die naturally, for this life form to die naturally as well. Wang Lin didn't have time to test if this method really worked, but when those words landed in Morong Yun's ears, it was like he was shocked by lightning. I am unkillable. When the soul pieces that I am made of die, I can gather more soul pieces to reform myself. Morong Yun's roar came from within the sphere. Wang Lin coldly snorted and landed at the foot of the mountain. He pointed at the ground and created a hole several dozen feet deep. Wang Lin jumped into the hole, placed the sphere inside, and began placing down restrictions nearby. Morong Yun noticed what Wang Lin was doing and quickly said, What are you doing? I'm going to seal you here. I'll come back in 100 years to see if my method works or not. As Wang Lin spoke, he continued to place down restrictions. Morong Yun pondered for several breaths before shouting, You, what exactly do you want? Wang Lin's lit up and he calmly said, I want my soul piece. Morong Yun quickly said, That is not possible. We were created by the cultivation planet crystal and are made of soul pieces, but we can pick which soul pieces we get. Also, I am far too weak to collect the soul piece of a cultivator like you. Only those powerful life forms in the inner section can take the soul pieces of powerful cultivators from the cultivation planet crystal. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He shook his head, placed down the last restriction, and flew out of the deep hole. At the bottom of the hole there was only the sphere formed by restrictions all by itself, surrounded by flashing restrictions. I know the real method to enter the intersection. Morong Yun didn't dare to bet. If he lost, he would really die. Wang Lin looked at the mountain range in the distance and said, I also know. He pointed to the ground and the hole began to close. Just as it was about to completely seal it, Morong Yun's roar came from within. We have a king in the intersection of the tomb. Only he can extract the soul pieces from the cultivation planet crystal. This is the truth. How do I find it? Wang Lin pointed at the ground to stop from closing. Morong Yun quickly said, Once you get inside the intersection, go east. There are 9 mountains that form a giant ravine. Instead of black fog, there is white fog coming out, making it easy to find. The king is at the bottom of the ravine. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Then he raised his right hand, left this place, and the ground began to close once more. Morong Yun's voice was cut off when the ground closed, leaving not even a crack. When Wang Lin reappeared, he was in a valley in the depths of the mountain range. When he passed by this place earlier, he had his divine sense spread out, so he noticed this valley. Inside the valley was an altar. This altar looked exactly the same as the one from before. However, when Wang Lin entered the valley, he suddenly stopped and looked forward. What he saw made his eyes become cold. A woman whose beauty couldn't be replicated sat beside the altar and looked at Wang Lin with her beautiful eyes. Liu Mei. Brothers, have you not yet hit the like button for the video? Wish that the like button for the video would be hit. Chapter 44, Li Shan. Wang Lin pondered for a while and said, What plans do you have? Do you need my help for anything? Wang Hao sighed and said, You are only at the R&D layer. You can help me because Lu Yunji is already at the TH layer. Also because he can produce pills, he is loved by the elders. I have already given up hope. Wang Lin, in these few years at the Heng Yue sect, You are my only friend and my big brother. If you become stronger in the future, you have to avenge me. Wang Hao tightened his fists after he finished speaking. Wang Lin stared at Wang Hao and nodded. Wang Hao bitterly smiled and said, Brother Taiju, did you need me for something? While I am still alive, I'll help you as much as I can. Do you want some QI gathering pills? I have a lot of them. Wang Lin looked at Wang Hao. He gave up on asking Wang Hao for the materials he needed and shook his head. He wanted to help Wang Hao, but the enemy was at the TH layer. Wang Lin was not confident at all. Although his divine sense was different from others, and he had practiced the attraction technique for more than 20 years, he had never fought with any other human, so he couldn't say for sure how strong he was. Wang Hao saw that Wang Lin stayed silent. He bitterly patted his clothes and said, Brother Taiju, you have more talent than I do. Thinking back to when we were taking the test, it feels like a dream. Time passes by too quickly. Wang Hao sighed and turned to leave with a gloomy expression. He slowly disappeared from Wang Lin's view. In this cultivation world, the strong prey on the weak. Wang Lin pondered this deeply in his heart as he stared at the sky. At that moment, Wang Lin had an epiphany. The so-called epiphany was in T1, where he suddenly gained understanding, and his cultivation suddenly increased, but more like knowledge being poured into 1S brain. What was increased here was in T1S cultivation or soul, but 1S understanding of heaven and earth. Realizing the cruel nature of the cultivation world was his epiphany. To be a cultivator, one must have the attitude of a cultivator. Wang Lin mumbled as he let out a sigh. Is the strong preying on the weak really the mentality a cultivator must have? His body moved, and he disappeared from where he was. When he was on his way back to the herb garden, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed as he looked at the guest rooms that the Xuandao sect disciples were staying at, and thoughtfully walked toward it. Before he even entered, he heard an exaggerated voice from inside. I have to say, brothers of the Hengyu sect, this flying sword I have is one of the peerless treasures of the Xuandao sect. It is called the Noon Money Sword. You guys ask around yourselves to know how much trouble I spent stealing this sword. If any of you wants to buy this, then you have to make a vow to not use this in the exchange in 3 days or I am not selling it. Someone immediately asked, with doubt, is this treasure really as amazing as you say it is? I, Li Shan, would never lie. If you guys don't believe me, then forget it. I can sell this flying sword anywhere. Wang Lin already found this place to be unusual, as a lot of disciples from both sects were gathered here. When he walked closer, he saw a 20-something-year-old disciple of the Xuandao sect holding a sword made of coins that was glowing blue, talking bombastically about the sword. The Xuandao sect disciples in the surroundings all had weird expressions on their faces. One of them couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed and said, what junior brother Li Shan said is correct. This Noon Money Sword is indeed a treasure of our Xuandao sect, but I have to say that the one in junior brother Li Shan's hand is a fake. However, it still has some uses. The Hengyu sect disciples talked among themselves. Then, a TH layer disciple walked forward. Wang Lin remembered that this disciple was named Zhao. Disciple Zhao walked up to Li Shan, and they talked among themselves until they made an exchange, both with smiles on their faces. Among the inner disciples, there were people who knew about the sword and mockingly said, it is just a simple iron sword with some broken spirit gold, and someone dared to try to sell it. It seems the Xuandao sect is worth only so much. Li Shan immediately retorted, what this brother said is incorrect. My elder apprentice brother even said that this was a fake, but your Hengyu sect still has someone who bought it. This type of thing is best to buy for the sake of novelty. The Hengyu sect disciple who bought the sword laughed and said, Brother Li Shan, what you said is wrong. I didn't buy this sword to collect, but to give it to my dad. My family raises pigs, so this sword would be perfect for killing pigs. Li Shan didn't get mad, and said, smiling, since you already bought it, I don't care what you do with it. Okay, I still have another treasure. It is called the Invincible Dark Stinking Thunderball. This thing really is a treasure. I am not lying. We can even do a live test. With that, he took out a black ball and threw it at a wall. With a boom, cracks appeared on the wall. There was a dark mist on the spot the ball hit, and it emitted a foul odor. Li Shan said, with a proud and smiling face, how is it? This invincible dark stinking thunderball is my own personal hidden weapon. Although the power isn't T-strong, if it lands on someone, this sludge is something even I can T-wash off. Especially the smell. It's something I made after gathering dozens of beasts. Anyone would be disgusted by it. Everyone was stunned and stared at each other with their mouths wide open. A few of the female disciples pinched their noses and took a few steps back. Wang Lin was also surprised. He sent out his divine sense and his expression suddenly turned strange. The disciples of the Xuan Dao sect all felt really awkward, but Li Shan was known in the Xuan Dao sect for making weird things. No one dared to mess with him because no one wanted to get hit by one of those stink bombs. The invincible black sludge stink bomb was really famous in the Xuan Dao sect. Secretly, it could almost match one of the sect's real treasures. So how was it? This time, I am showing you all hidden my ace, but I still have to say the same thing I said before. You can T-use it in the exchange in 3 days, or I 1T-sell it to you. Li Shan revealed a serious expression, but secretly laughed in his heart. You silly brats. The more I say you mustn't T-use it, the more likely you guys will use it in the exchange. Hey, there will be a good show to see. The elders will definitely praise me and even give me a few magical treasures. With that, his eyes lit up and he began to shout. Thank you all for the support, especially for the large golden gifts from Leo. Leo is so touched he could cry. By the end of this month, Leo's video is facing a challenge in the popular rankings, hoping to get more likes for the video. Chapter 448, The Third Encounter with Liu Mei. This woman was Liu Mei. She was wearing a light pink dress with blue butterflies embroidered on the edge. Her dress gently flowed with the wind. Her silky black hair was casually draped over her shoulder down to her waist, which, along with her slim figure, made her all the more alluring. Liu Mei let out a smile and whispered, Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression was cold. He looked at the altar beside Liu Mei and blandly said, Move aside. Liu Mei revealed a hint of weakness in her eyes and gently asked, Do you hate me, Wang Lin? Wang Lin slightly frowned. Then he coldly looked at Liu Mei and said, with a heavy tone, Move aside. At this moment, a breeze came from the mountain and lifted up Liu Mei's silk-like hair. This elegant scene was also filled with a refined sense of beauty. Liu Mei's figure was very beautiful. She gently put the strands of hair that were lifted by the wind behind her ears. Then she looked at Wang Lin with resentment in her eyes and stood up. Wang Lin, you are such a cold-hearted person. Could it be that besides Li Muan you can allow another person into your heart? Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He coldly looked at Liu Mei and touched his bag of holding. The celestial sword appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, he activated his celestial spiritual energy and swung the sword. A slice that could shatter the heavens. The swing with celestial spiritual energy traveled through the valley like a meteor. Liu Mei's expression remained calm. She pointed at the air before her and the figure of a peacock appeared. At this moment, the sword energy arrived. The peacock's eyes started glowing green, then it shook its body and several feathers quickly fell off its body and created a shield. Boom! The sword energy collided with the feathers and the resulting shockwave caused both Liu Mei and Wang Lin's clothes to flap loudly in the wind. Liu Mei's eyes lit up as she looked at Wang Lin and said, You are indeed at the early stage of soul transformation. Wang Lin, your cultivation speed is really fast. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He looked at the celestial sword in his hand and gently stroked it. Then he said, with a heavy tone, Liu Mei, I'll say it one last time, move aside, or I'll attack with all my power. Liu Mei bit her lower lip, shook her head, and whispered, I can let you. Wang Lin, you have no chance of surviving inside. How about you give me your domain and I'll get your soul piece back for you. Wang Lin looked at Liu Mei and began to laugh. 1,000 illusion ruthless domain. Liu Mei, do you still think I haven't seen through you yet? Liu Mei's expression remained calm, and she smiled. Of course not. I believe that the big-eared cultivator came to battle with me just for you. That is correct. My domain is the 1,000 illusion ruthless domain. Your life and death domain is one of the most ruthless things under the heavens. The heavens have to be ruthless or it won't form Daos. Wang Lin, on a fundamental level, we are the same. I used 1,000 avatars to experience various lives filled with emotion to cultivate my ruthless Tao. And you use emotions to experience death, see beyond it, and comprehend the reincarnation cycle. I'm sure you have already comprehended that the life and death domain of the reincarnation cycle is also a ruthless Tao. You and I are the same kind of people. While Wang Lin stared at Liu Mei, he slapped his bag of holding, and the restriction flag appeared. He didn't want to use the soul flag right away. The soul flag should be saved for when he tries to take back his soul piece, or when fighting the king for his soul piece. He shook the restriction flag, causing the restrictions to fly out. Strands of restriction gas spread out and surrounded the valley. Wang Lin shouted, "Liu Mei, Jukizi is about to die. Our battle is pointless." Liu Mei was, after all, at the mid-stage of soul transformation, so he couldn't win quickly without using the soul flag. If he gets delayed here for too long and fails to get his soul piece back, it would be bad. Liu Mei smiled and looked at the sky. The gentleness in her eyes disappeared and was replaced with a cold and ruthless gaze. "Wang Lin, even if my teacher hadn't ordered it, I would still have come to fight you, because I need your domain to complete my 1,000 illusion ruthless domain." "Wang Lin, you can attack." Wang Lin's gaze was now completely cold. His hand formed a seal as he pointed at her and said, "Restrict." The restrictions from the restriction flag suddenly began to congregate. They were all flashing brightly. This light gathered before Wang Lin to form a black lance. Purple lightning moved along the black lance, causing cracking and popping sounds. Wang Lin moved forward and grabbed the lance. Celestial spiritual energy immediately surged from his body into the lance, causing the lance to glow golden purple. All of the restrictions had celestial spiritual energy infused into them, so a primal aura appeared from the lance. "Scraya!" Wang Lin yelled as he jumped into the air and stabbed toward Liu Mei. He was like a dragon diving into the sea. The lance charged forward as if it could pierce the heavens, creating sonic booms along the way. Liu Mei's cold eyes revealed a mysterious light, and she said, "Although you have a lot of treasures, the amount of celestial spiritual energy you can use with your early-stage soul transformation cultivation is too little." With that, her delicate hand pointed forward, and with a green flash, the figure of the peacock appeared before her once more. This peacock's eyes released a demonic light as it floated above Liu Mei and stared at Wang Lin, who was still charging toward Liu Mei. At the moment Wang Lin's lance closed in, Liu Mei whispered, "Open." With one word, all of the feathers on the peacock suddenly opened. The beautiful figure of a peacock opening its tail feathers appeared within the valley. It suddenly became very bright, as if all the light in the surrounding area had gathered on the dazzling sight of the peacock. At the same time, a powerful surge of celestial spiritual energy came out from the peacock and surrounded the area. Although it sounds like these events took a while to unfold, it all happened very quickly. Wang Lin closed in with the lance like lightning. Boom! A loud boom occurred at the moment the peacock opened its tail feathers. The powerful impact of the celestial spiritual energies forced Wang Lin's body to pause for a moment. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. Although his body paused for a moment, his reaction was very fast. He flicked his wrist and the lance flew toward the peacock at an even faster speed. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion occurred. The lance was like a fierce dragon as it slammed into the peacock. The purple lighting on the lance disappeared, and the lance collapsed into strands of restriction gas which shattered and faded away. Although the peacock was still beautiful, its color had dimmed. Liu Mei's face was a bit pale as she whispered, "This treasure of yours isn't a pseudo-celestial treasure or a celestial treasure. It is very strange." As Wang Lin threw the lance away, he quickly backed up, reached out with his hand, and a 30-foot-long flag suddenly appeared in his hand. The moment the flag appeared, the coldness in Liu Mei's eyes deepened. She looked at the soul flag and whispered, "I didn't expect Senior Du Tian to really give you the 1 billion soul flag. However, Wang Lin, I already knew that you had the soul flag, or else I wouldn't have chosen to wait for you at this altar. I was the second person to enter the Suzaku tomb, and this is the battlefield I have chosen for the two of us. If you choose to use the soul flag, I will destroy the altar. It will take several days for it to reform, so you will be delayed for several days." Wang Lin's eyes were cold as he looked at Liu Mei. Situ Nan had explained this altar to him before. This altar was created by first-generation Suzaku with the purpose of transferring people. Once the cultivation planet crystal has opened, it will be surrounded by the crystal's mysterious power and gain some extra abilities. Even if it was destroyed, it would only need a few days to rebuild itself and remain here forever. Its characteristics were similar to those of the life forms made of soul pieces. Wang Lin asked, in a serious tone, "What is your purpose?" Liu Mei looked at Wang Lin and faintly smiled. "I don't have any purpose. I just want to have a domain battle with you." As Wang Lin stared at Liu Mei, his right hand tightened and the 1 billion soul flag disappeared. His left hand formed a seal and pointed between his eyebrows. The sky darkened and a rift opened as if 2 invisible hands had torn it open. Waves of gray gas came out from the rift. As more and more gray gas appeared, a giant scroll suddenly emerged from the gray gas and covered the sky. The moment the scroll appeared, it released a mysterious power that surrounded the area. Liu Mei's eyes lit up, then she took a deep breath, sat down cross-legged on the altar, and closed her eyes. At the moment she closed her eyes, the peacock before her let out a sharp shrill and floated up. It was now directly above Liu Mei. Its body suddenly expanded, making it a 100-foot-tall peacock. Its tail feathers were now even larger, and it almost completely covered the entire mountain range. My domain is the 1,000 illusion ruthless domain. Every feather on this peacock is 1 illusion. In truth, my domain doesn't have 1,000 illusions yet. It only has 999. Once I obtain the last illusion, my domain will reach the late stage of soul transformation. Wang Lin, give me the last illusion, okay? Liu Mei's voice came from the peacock. Wang Lin's eyes were cold as he raised his hand and pointed at the sky. A heaven-shattering explosion came from the scroll in the sky as mountains and rivers appeared in the scroll. Strands of gray gas came out from the black and white painting inside scroll. I'll give you the last illusion you wish for, and it will be one you will never forget in your life. Wang Lin's voice was cold as he pointed down toward Liu Mei. As time goes on, a heavy dizziness is setting in. My mind can't cope. Tomorrow I will continue to burst forth with all my might. In 12 hours that will be doubling the likes for the video, hoping that everyone is ready with 2 likes for Leo. Thank you. Chapter 449, The Last Illusion. A loud rumble came from the scroll, followed by a large amount of gray gas. It suddenly turned into a dragon and opened its mouth to devour Liu Mei's peacock. The peacock let a cry. This cry was very crisp and could shake the high heavens. It then lifted its proud head and opened its beautiful tail. The 7 colored tail feathers gave off a demonic glow as the ruthless domain flew out. At this moment, another color appeared under the life and death scroll. This ruthlessness could make ice even colder and force the 4 seasons to immediately change. Wang Lin felt this coldness inside the valley. This was ruthlessness, a natural indifference. At this moment, the peacock was only an illusion. The one who was really looking at the dragon was Liu Mei. Her eyes were indifferent, ruthless, and cold. Although she was similar to Red Butterfly was cutting off emotion, which was very different from having no emotion. Only someone with emotions can cut off their emotions. And the heavens were naturally emotionless. Since there were no emotions to cut in the first place, it was a step higher. The dragon descended and its giant mouth arrived next to the peacock. In a flash, the dragon split into thin gray pieces of fog that surrounded the peacock. Wang Lin sighed. Nothing in the world can escape life and death. Let those that exist continue to exist and let what is dissipating dissipate. He thought of Li Muwan. The peacock let out another cry as the 7 colors from its tail fused together to form a rainbow. The rainbow shot out from the peacock, pierced into the sky, and fused with the painting and the scroll in the sky. The most beautiful thing in this world is often the most ruthless. A rainbow is beautiful and is admired by hundreds of millions of people. However, it is ruthless because no one can make it stay. Just like how the peacock's tail opening is beautiful but is also death. After the rainbow entered the scroll, the painting was no longer just black and white. It now contained a bit of color. The gray gas around the peacock was no longer monochrome. It also had other colors mixed in. 999 illusions. I am missing just 1 illusion to obtain 1,000 illusions. Wang Lin, where is that last illusion? If you only have this much strength, if you can resist against me without the soul flag, then I am very disappointed in you. I could have attacked you when I first met you in the soul refining sect, but you were too weak then. Your domain hadn't reached its completion and become corporeal yet, so I had to wait. Your domain has now reached soul transformation completion and become corporeal, but you are still so weak. If this is all you have, then you won't even be able to let me complete my last illusion. Wang Lin's expression remained the same. He raised his head to look at the life and death scroll and silently pondered. Inside the painting in the scroll, the 7 colors became even more dense, and the painting was no longer just black and white. The mountain and sea became very lifelike. Not only did the mountains and sea have color, Even the trees had a hint of green on them. You say to let what exists continue to exist and what should dissipate to dissipate. But does your heart really think so? Wang Lin, I never thought that your domain had such a big weakness. No wonder you didn't want to attack with your domain, so it was like this. Liu Mei's voice was filled with a heavy sense of disappointment. Wang Lin's eyes were cold. He waved his hand and a strand of pink gas flew out from his hand and into the life and death scroll. Wang Lin coldly said, "What should dissipate will naturally dissipate, but if something that should exist dissipates, then I definitely agree. Liu Mei, I am gifting you your last illusion." At this moment, a pink dot appeared on the life and death scroll and transformed into a charming figure. This figure wasn't Ti Li Muan, but the one Shu Liguo kept referring to as Little Sister Fairy. The third ancestor of the Forsaken Immortal clan reincarnated into a cultivator and obtained her own domain, but when she returned to the Forsaken Immortal clan, she gave up her cultivation and allowed her origin soul to shatter. However, her domain was very stubborn, so it didn't dissipate. After Wang Lin got hold of her, he kept her in his bag of holding. This was Wang Lin Esral Ace against Liu Mei. In fact, Wang Lin had thought of this plan before Zhou Wutai handed him the information about Liu Mei. Although this method was very vicious, if Liu Mei didn't give up on Wang Lin, then he would use it without any hesitation. After he saw the information from Zhou Wutai, he was even more confident that this domain was ideal for dealing with Liu Mei. To break a ruthless domain that is based on having no emotions, one must use lust to create an emotion. At the same time, an evil laughter came from within the scroll. Meiji's charming figure appeared inside the scroll. Her crisp voice was like a song. "What a ruthless heart to trap me for so long and only to release me when you have a use for me. Wang Lin, could your heart really be made of stone? But this little girl really does like this body." With that, she let out a charming laughter. This laughter even caused Wang Lin to become shocked. He required a few moments to recover. Black fog came out from the celestial sword and Shu Liguo stared at Meiji, his eyes filled with desire. This is Liu Mei's hesitant voice came from within the peacock. Wang Lin's eyes showed no mercy as he said, "Life and death domain reincarnation cycle." The scroll in the sky suddenly closed with a bang like two giant waves from the north and south had just crashed together. The moment it closed, the rainbow shattered and the colors were forced out of the scroll. However, the scroll suddenly trembled and once more opened up, but this time there were neither mountains nor a sea in the scroll, only the figure of a woman. This woman was very beautiful. Her eyes were filled with lust as she let out a laugh. She jumped out of the scroll, turned into a pink mist, and quickly descended upon the giant peacock above Liu Mei. The peacock revealed a hint of hesitation in its eyes. This hesitation came from Liu Mei's heart. This kind of hesitation was very rare when coming from Liu Mei. Wang Lin calmly asked Liu Mei, "Did you want the last illusion?" The hesitation disappeared from the peacock's eyes as Liu Mei's voice came from it. "Wang Lin, you really despicable." Wang Lin's expression remained the same. The pink mist that was Meiji descended from the sky like a meteor. The pink mist split into two right above the peacock and entered its eyes. The peacock began to emit a pink smoke, then its body trembled once and collapsed into specks of light, revealing Liu Mei, who was sitting on the altar. At this moment, a rosy red color appeared on her cheeks, making her already beautiful face even more charming and alluring. However, Wang Lin's eyes were still cold. He didn't care if Meiji could successfully take over Liu Mei, or if Liu Mei could complete her last illusion. There was no grudge or deep hatred between Wang Lin and Liu Mei. Overall, their relationship was complicated. If it wasn't for the fact that Liu Mei kept looking for Wang Lin to cause him trouble, he probably wouldn't have used Meiji. Although it was granting Liu Mei a wish, it was just as Liu Mei said, to use the lust domain to break her ruthless domain was too despicable. But Wang Lin didn't take any of this to heart. He began to walk forward. He just needed to enter the altar to go into the intersection of the tomb. His first goal was to find the first generation Suzaku's grave. It would be great if he could get his soul piece back from there, but if it was not there, he would find the king of those life forms and get his soul piece back that way. After obtaining his soul piece, he won't care about the matters on planet Suzaku. He will leave here and leave this whole mess behind. In these past several years, Wang Lin had a feeling that Tuo Sen from the land of the ancient gods would be able to escape soon. He believed that he stood no chance against Tuosen at all. At this moment, at the eastern side of the Suzaku continent, in an area covered by a black cloud, the Forsaken Immortal Clan's first ancestor Xianxia, the third ancestor, and a 10-leaf ancestral spirit were sitting there. Their life plants were flashing above their foreheads, and in between them was a skull. There was a tattoo engraved on this skull. This tattoo was several times more complex than the ones on the skulls Wang Lin obtained. There was no comparison. There was a powerful aura gathering above the skull. Xianxia looked at the skull with respect and said, in a heavy tone, the ancestor obtained enlightenment from the primal spirit of our clan, and broke past the 11-leaf stage to become the third 12-leaf shaman in the clan. As history, this skull tattoo possesses a certain power, so if all of us work together, we should be able to use it to send one of us inside. The first ancestor slowly asked, then who is going? The third ancestor, that beautiful and charming woman, was no longer in any mood to laugh, so she sighed. It would be ideal for first ancestor to go, but your body is buried deep within the immortal graveyard. If you go with your tattoo soul, we don't to know if the Suzaku tomb will affect you or not. How about just as she got here, she suddenly stood up and looked toward the direction of the Suzaku tomb. Then she slowly revealed a strange expression. That sliver of my domain from back then is trying to possess a body humph. How could I let her do as she wishes? The second watch has come. So thankful for the praise from the new clan leader. Last night Leo started from the starting point, immediately saw a new follower. I'm ecstatic. Thank you everyone. Chapter 450,000 Illusion Lust Domain. Xianxia was startled and said, is that your old lust domain? The third ancestor nodded and said, it is my lust domain. If she succeeds in the possession, she will definitely take part of my power. How can I let her succeed? That thing separated from me and was found by a little cultivator. I believe that little cultivator is inside the Suzaku tomb right now. Although I can destroy the domain, I can make some slight changes to it. Normally it wouldn't matter too much, but during a possession it will make her possession fail. After the third ancestor finished speaking, she pointed at her forehead. The plant on her forehead began to move in a mysterious manner. Tattoos came out from the plant and disappeared in the air. In the Suzaku tomb, Wang Lin walked onto the altar and activated it. He felt the altar teleporting him, and he was just about to disappear. But just at this moment, a large amount of pink mist suddenly poured out of Liu Mei's forehead. It was followed by Meiji's scream. How could it be like this? There is a force with the same type of energy as me interfering with my possession. How could it be so? When Meiji was born, she lost all memories of her creator, so this was their first meeting from her point of view. After she entered Liu Mei's body and was breaking Liu Mei's domain, she suddenly felt pain in her soul. This pain caused her to lose all her power and made her feel very weak. As a result, Liu Mei's domain counteracted and she was forced out. At the moment Meiji was forced out of Liu Mei's eyes opened up and she said, you read the last illusion, you won't be able to escape. After Liu Mei spoke, a large amount of the pink mist was sucked back into her. Meiji let out a scream. She was still completely powerless. She felt despair before clenching her teeth and snapping, if I can possess you, then let's fuse. With that, Meiji used some unknown method that caused her body explode and her soul to collapse. Even her powerful lust domain also collapsed, and all of it went into Liu Mei. All of this happened very fast. By the time Wang Lin turned around to look at Liu Mei, Meiji had already collapsed. At this moment, a large amount of pink mist came out of every single pore on Liu Mei's body. The clothes on Liu Mei's body turned to dust and disappeared. What appeared before Wang Lin's eyes was Liu Mei's extremely beautiful body that would charm almost any man. Wang Lin didn't have enough time to teleport away before the pink mist spread out in all directions. He could only quickly back up and create a gust of wind filled with celestial spiritual energy to shield him. However, although he backed up very quickly, the pink mist was not affected by the gust at all. It was as if it was ethereal, so it quickly spread out. It spread too fast. Even as Wang Lin backed up, some of the pink mist still entered his pores. However, the amount of pink mist that entered Wang Lin's body wasn't too much, so after activating a bit of celestial spiritual energy, he pushed most of it out of his body. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he continued to back away until he was finally able to dodge the pink mist. This pink mist isn't a spell, it's formed from a domain. That is why the wind had no effect on it. Wang Lin's expression was dark as he looked at the pink mist that was covering the valley. A very alluring figure slowly appeared from within the pink mist. Liu Mei's originally white and flawless skin now showed a hint of rosy red, and her eyes would sometimes expose a ruthless gaze and other times expose a lustful gaze. Her expression made it look like she was going through a painful struggle. At this moment, the ruthlessness in Liu Mei's eyes disappeared and lust filled her eyes. She let out an extremely beautiful smile as she raised her hand and pointed at the air. All of the surrounding pink mist suddenly rushed out in all directions at an unimaginable speed. The pink mist spread like a shock wave, carrying an incredible amount of force. It was as if something had exploded. The speed at which the pink mist spread was far faster than Wang Lin. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding tens of thousands of kilometers became a world of pink. The mountains were also covered by this pink mist, giving off the illusion that it was all a dream. Wang Lin wasn't too far from Liu Mei. They were at the center of the pink mist. Originally, with his mental strength, he would be able to withstand this if he stopped his breathing and activated his domain. But when Wang Lin was retreating earlier, a bit of pink mist had entered Wang Lin's body. Normally, he only needed to find a place to cultivate for about 1 incense stick of time to force it out of him completely, but now he didn't have that time. As the pink mist surrounded him, the pink mist inside him broke free from the seal and moved through his body. Thanks to the pink mist inside and outside his body, Wang Lin lost control for the first time. The 1,000 illusion ruthless domain was already at the mid-stage of soul transformation. This was really only 999 illusions, and each one represented a life Liu Mei had lived. The Liu Mei in the Xuandao sect was only one of the avatars. Liu Mei had 999 avatars like this to experience 999 different illusions, and she only needed one more for her domain to reach the late stage of soul transformation. After reaching the late stage, she will only need enough celestial jades before she can take the life and death trial to reach the ascendant stage. One step could be death, or that one step could lead to becoming an ascendant cultivator. Meiji's appearance was a great trial for Liu Mei. Without the third ancestor's interference, Liu Mei most likely would have been possessed, becoming a puppet that only knew how to enjoy sensual pleasure. That was why, in her eyes, Wang Lin was despicable. The third ancestor's unintentional help forced Meiji to collapse to fuse with Liu Mei, causing her life to become Liu Mei's 1,000th illusion. Her domain was currently far above Wang Lin's life and death domain, which was only at the early stage of soul transformation, so he couldn't resist it. The pink mist that covered everything within tens of thousands of kilometers was now slowly condensing back toward the valley. This process lasted for 2 days. All of the pink mist outside of the valley had come back, but the valley itself was still covered in pink mist. From inside the mist, the painful cries of a woman could be heard, but that voice was also filled with pleasure. The voice was like the song of a fairy that would make anyone's heart pound and blood surge. After an unknown amount of time, the pink mist gradually faded, revealing a woman lying on the side of the altar. Clarity slowly returned to her eyes. Ripples of energy were coming from the altar, meaning that someone had just teleported away. Shortly after, all of the pink mist dissipated, and the valley returned to what it was like before. The woman sat up straight and slightly frowned as she reached out to grab a bag of holding. With a flash of white light, the woman's naked body was hidden under a white dress. She stood up, looked at the red spots on the altar, and began to ponder. I can believe that the last illusion of the 1,000 illusion ruthless domain is this illusion. The moment this illusion appears, the domain changes to the 1,000 illusion lust domain. All of this is like an illusion, yet it is so real. I never thought that my 1,000 illusion ruthless domain's last illusion would be obtained like this teacher wanted me to leave my mark on Wang Lin's Dao heart, but he never would have thought that my last illusion would contain his aura. Liu Mei's eyebrows were furrowed tightly together as she looked into the distance and finally let out a sigh. She had a very complex feeling in her heart, and at this moment she suddenly felt lost. Everything that just happened was completely outside her expectations. Wang Lin's body appeared in a wasteland in the intersection of the Suzaku tomb. After he appeared, he looked into the sky with a very complex expression. While being surrounded by the pink mist, he felt like he was in a dream. When the pink mist dissipated, he saw a woman below him. At that moment, his heart felt pain for her. I still have things to do right now, so I have to put aside the matter with Liu Mei for now. Thinking about it is useless, Wang Lin sighed as he touched the spot between his eyebrows. This was where the heaven-defying bead was located. Li Muana's nascent soul was slowly recovering inside the heaven-defying bead, and one day she will awaken. Wang Lin pondered a bit before he disappeared and flew off quickly into the distance. The inner section of the Suzaku tomb was also different from what Situnan told him. Situnan said that the inside of the Suzaku tomb wasn't too large and that there was a mountain in the center. The first generation Suzaku left the Suzaku seal S Dao inside the mountain, and that was also where his corpse was located. Every Suzaku cultivated here for several months to obtain the Suzaku seal S inheritance. Wang Lin's divine sense spread out and swept the area. This place was too big for Wang Lin to cover in his divine sense, but he detected multiple powerful presences. These presences immediately released their full auras when they noticed Wang Li. It was as if they were trying to provoke him. Wang Lin's heart trembled. All of these presences were life forms made of soul pieces. Not only did the inner section have more of these life forms, but they were much more powerful than the ones outside. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Then he picked a direction and quickly flew that way. His first goal was to find the mountain which was supposed to be the center of this place. He knew that he didn't have much time left. If the cultivation planet crystal shatters, he will have to use the method Situnan gave him. This cultivation planet crystal was very tyrannical. It was the absolute power that the Cultivation Alliance gives to rank 6 cultivation countries. After cultivators have reached the ascendant stage and have experienced trying to find their own Dao, they might get a chance to get their soul piece back from the cultivation planet crystal. However, none of the Suzakus could take back their soul pieces. If they did, they would lose their ability to use this Suzaku seal and, in a way, lose their title of Suzaku. The new chapter is late, but it has over 500 more words than the previous ones. I hope not to be hit. Wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 451 Wan ERS Soul Piece. But not all ascendant cultivators succeed. The success rate is only 50%. Only after reaching the level above ascendant, or if a rank 5 cultivation country ascends to rank 6, can one's soul piece be safely retrieved. Yunke wasn't able to retrieve his soul piece. In fact, ever since the country of Suzaku arrived, no one has managed to retrieve their soul piece. This had a lot to do with Situnan's seal. Although the seal on the cultivation planet crystal prevented future Suzakus from controlling the planet. It also stopped anyone from being able to retrieve their soul piece when they reached the ascendant stage. In some more powerful cultivation planets, like the ones controlled by rank 7 or 8 cultivation countries, there were sects that were powerful enough to match a rank 6 cultivation planet. These sects have found ways to avoid the cultivation planet crystal. If that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be any strife within the Cultivation Alliance. At this moment, far away in space on a large planet, many rays of sword lights were flying across the sky. These people were not fighting but rushing to some place. This planet was far too large. It was tens of times the size of planet Suzaku, and with a planet this big, it would naturally have more mortals. 5 smaller planets orbited this large planet. There were also countless cultivators living on each one of them. There were even smaller planets farther out with powerful formations protecting them. The largest planet, the one at the center, was planet Tianyun. The 5 smaller planets were under the control of planet Tianyun, which was a rank 7 planet. As for the even smaller planets, they were personal planets of very powerful cultivators. Unless people were personally invited, no one could enter them. Planet Suzaku was simply too small compared to this. There were many sects on planet Tianyun, but of course the most prominent was the Heavenly Fate sect. The Heavenly Fate sect says that everything in life depends on fate. Everything has already been set, so you can force it and you can escape it. This decree of the sect gave them a transcendental feel. The person who set this decree was a person that a majority of the population on planet Tianyun respected. He was the Alzer. At this moment, the Alzer opened his eyes from his closed-door cultivation. He had a gentle expression on his face, and although he had white hair, he didn't look old, giving him a transcendental feel. His bright eyes showed off more energy than many youths' eyes. There wasn't a hint of death on him. He was filled with endless vitality. He was currently at the Heavenly Fate sect's Celestial Fate Pagoda. At this moment, both of his eyes revealed a mysterious light, and he muttered to himself, When I was visiting an old friend, I passed by a semi-wasted cultivation planet and met a child. This child was able to comprehend the life and death domain of the reincarnation cycle and was trying to reach the soul formation stage. Not many people can do this, so when I saw that his cultivation was lacking, I gave him a hint and said that I would accept him as my honorary disciple for 100 years. Today I suddenly had a feeling I believe that this child will arrive soon. I don't know what cultivation level he is currently at, but if he manages to get here. If his cultivation level isn't at least at the late stage of soul formation, I'll be disappointed. The Ulcer pondered a bit before slightly shaking his head and closing his eyes again. Inside the Suzaku tomb, Wang Lin had slowed down and kept his divine sense in a smaller range than before. There were simply too many of those lifeforms around here, and some of them would be hard for Wang Lin to deal with unless he used the 1 billion soul flag. He moved very carefully. Whenever he detected danger, he would immediately change directions and go around it. This caused his journey to slow down a lot. On this day, what appeared before Wang Lin were 2 heaven-piercing mountains. Between the 2 mountains was a small path with no end in sight that led into the depths of the 2 mountains. The 2 mountains were surrounded by a luscious jungle. While Wang Lin stood at the foot of the 2 mountains, he pondered a bit and his eyes sparkled. He had already been in the inner part of the tomb for a few days now. According to his calculations, the center of this place should be through the path. However, along the way, Wang Lin could clearly feel that the closer he went to the center, the more of those lifeforms there were. Some of the more powerful ones were not things Wang Lin could deal with. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin walked toward the small path between the 2 mountains. He was very cautious with each step and constantly watched his surroundings. These lifeforms could take many forms, so if one was careless for even a moment, they would be ambushed. Along the way, Wang Lin looked at the surface of the 2 mountains on either side of this narrow path. There were patches of wet spots on the smooth mountain surfaces, and sometimes drops of water would fall from the sides of the mountains. After walking several dozen meters, Wang Lin's expression changed, and he realized that something was off. He carefully looked at the walls of the 2 mountains and his eyes lit up. If this place is wet year-round, then there should be moss growing. After all, the rest of this place is similar to the planet outside. However, this place looks like it just became wet recently. Wang Lin's right hand pointed to the face of one of the mountains and his finger immediately dug into it, creating a 1-inch deep hole. The outer half-inch of the hole was wet, but the latter half-inch was dry. Without any hesitation, Wang Lin quickly backed up. In the blink of an eye, he was already out of the small path, and right as he backed out, the water on the walls of the mountain began to move. The water came out from the walls and droplets of crystal clear water started floating above the small path. These were countless water drops, at least tens of thousands of them, and every single one of them represented a soul piece. These water droplets condensed into a human figure. The water moved in a mysterious fashion and finally took the shape of a woman. This woman looked normal, but she gave off a strange aura. After she appeared, she stared coldly at Wang Lin and slowly said, "You can go inside." Wang Lin slowly backed up. The one type of life form he least wanted to mess was one made of water. This type was the most difficult life form to deal with. Even though the one before him was only as strong as a soul formation cultivator, it would still be hard for him to deal with. Water was a substance that could gather and scatter. Even though he could seal it, it was very difficult to get it all. A few days ago, Wang Lin encountered a water-based life form, and he had to give up and move around it in the end. This was why once he noticed that there was a chance that a water-based life form was here, he backed up without any hesitation. Just as he backed up, he spread out his divine sense to check what was further down the path. Before, his divine sense wasn't spread out much to avoid unnecessary trouble, but now that the water life form had showed itself, he spread it out without any hesitation and was shocked. Deep into the mountain path, he saw someone. This was someone he knew. This person was currently fighting against a water life form and had the upper hand. However, when he saw the water life form this person was fighting against, he felt a sense of familiarity with it. This feeling wasn't strong, but it was there. Wang Lin's heart trembled as he backed up. After the woman made of water droplets saw Wang Lin back up, she quickly moved deeper into the mountain. Wang Lin stood outside the mountain and pondered. Something is not right. Why does that water life form give me this feeling? I don't have a water spirit root, so my soul piece can be inside a water life form. This is strange. Wang Lin slightly frowned. He hung around for a bit, and just as he was about to leave, his expression suddenly changed and he turned around. He suddenly felt pain in his heart. It was as if there was a soul piece inside there, weakly calling out to him for help. Wan-er. Wang Lin was startled and he understood. Wan-er was inside the heaven-defying bead, and the heaven-defying bead existed within his soul. Naturally, this gave him the ability to detect Wan-er's soul piece. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. This time he didn't hesitate to fly into the depths of the two mountains. Just as he entered the path, the woman who blocked him earlier took form again to block him. She raised her right hand and waved it. Soon, a large amount of water droplets filled the small path. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. Without a word, he took out the celestial sword while not slowing down at all and threw it forward with a shout. After that, he pointed his left hand between his eyebrows. Wang Lin's body trembled for a moment as his origin soul came out of his body. His origin soul was over 100 feet tall. It caught up to the celestial sword in an instant and continued to charge forth. In almost the blink of an eye, Wang Lin's origin soul charged through the woman's body, and the celestial sword pierced through her body. The woman let out a miserable groan as the soul pieces that formed her body collapsed and scattered. But Wang Lin's origin soul had already entered her body. His origin soul divided from 1 to 2, then from 2 to 4, and from 4 to 8 until his origin soul had split into countless smaller pieces that entered every single soul piece. At the same time, a shout came from Wang Lin's origin soul. Seal! In an instant, countless restrictions appeared from Wang Lin's origin soul and sealed each one of the soul pieces. Then he reformed his origin soul and flew toward his body, which was still flying in this direction due to momentum. The end of the year is here, brothers. Give a like for Leo. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 452, Stealing the Soul. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as his origin soul returned to his body. His hand reached out and the celestial sword flew back into his grasp. Holding the celestial sword, Wang Lin charged into the depths of the mountain. Shortly after Wang Lin left, the droplets that he sealed all popped. The water droplets turned to gas and gathered together to reform that woman. A water life form can only be sealed for a moment. It is almost impossible to completely seal them. This woman's eyes were fierce as she looked into the depths of the mountain. Her body turned into water once more as she charged after Wang Lin. Wang Lin moved very quickly, so he arrived deep within the mountain in a few short moments. There was a hunchbacked old man with half of his clothes torn. There were many glowing tattoos on his body. Their tattoos floating in the air before him, forming a seal with a mass of water in the middle. This water seemed to be boiling. There was an 8-leaf plant on the old man's forehead, and he was emitting a powerful tattoo energy. The hunchbacked old man said, I can kill you, but I can refine all these soul pieces that allow you to take form. It will take you a while to recover, so you won't be able to chase after me anymore. This old man was the one that chased Wang Lin into the spatial rift back in the immortal graveyard. In the end, he relied on his connection to the ancestral spirit to finally get rescued by his clan. His hatred for Wang Lin had reached its limit and caused him to go on a killing spree in this war. Among all the 8-leaf shamans, he is the one who killed the most cultivators. Wang Lin's appearance shocked the old man. He had to keep all his attention on the water life form or else he would die, so he didn't notice Wang Lin approaching. Also, Wang Lin's cultivation level was much higher than before. This was why the old man didn't detect Wang Lin. It's you. The old man's eyes immediately became cold when he saw Wang Lin and he let out a laugh. He pointed at a tattoo before him, and it immediately charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin coldly snorted. He didn't pause at all after he arrived here. Almost at the same moment the old man noticed him, he teleported next to the tattoos that were trapping the water life form and swung down the celestial sword. With a loud bang, countless cracks appeared on the tattoos that were sealing the water, and they shattered one by one. The hunchbacked old man let out a roar as he charged toward Wang Lin. His hand extended toward Wang Lin, and at the center of his palm was a very ancient tattoo. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Without a word, He reached out and the 1 billion soul flag appeared. Without even attacking, the 1 billion soul flag could shock any enemy. The hunchbacked old man couldn't help but pause for a moment. His heart trembled. He felt like he knew this flag and couldn't help but feel terror. Wang Lin shook the 1 billion soul flag, causing a series of ghostly wails to escape as the soul fragments charged out. The loudest wail came from a purple Kalin that let out a roar that pierced even the high heavens. Right after it appeared, it opened its vicious mouth and tried to devour the old man. Behind the Kalin were more than 10 soul transformation primary souls. The entire gorge was surrounded by the soul fragments, and they all charged toward the old man. The hunchbacked old man secretly cursed and backed up without any hesitation. If there were only a few soul transformation soul fragments, he wouldn't have to worry so much. After all, a soul fragment couldn't compare to a real cultivator. Even if there were 3 or 4 of them, he would at least be able to escape or fight to a standstill. But there were simply too many of them for someone of his current cultivation level to handle. That purple Kalin was especially terrifying. Just looking at it made his heart tremble. Adding on to that, there were countless weaker soul fragments. After taking all that into account, there's no way he would fight, so he quickly escaped. He would never have guessed that the little brat he could have easily killed 100 years ago had already reached the soul transformation stage and possessed the 1 billion soul flag that the Forsaken Immortal clan feared. The hunchbacked old man could even feel that a large number of the soul fragments had the aura of his Forsaken Immortal clan. Those must have been his clan members who were captured and refined in the war back then. At the moment the old man tried to escape, the woman who was chasing Wang Lin arrived. When she saw the scene inside the gorge, her eyes lit up. She turned into water and silently moved toward the old man. Wang Lin didn't have time to bother with the old man. He continued to swing the celestial sword down on the tattoo prison. A series of rumbling sounds could be heard as more and more tattoos shattered. The water life form trapped inside turned from a mass of water into a woman. When Wang Lin saw her, his heart trembled. This woman looked similar to Li Muwan. With one last swing of the celestial sword, Wang Lin shattered the prison completely. The woman inside let out a joyous laugh and escaped the prison. Wang Lin already knew this would happen, so there was no way he would let her escape. The only issue was that this woman was much stronger than the one that tried to stop him before. She was almost as powerful as a mid-stage soul transformation cultivator. Adding on her immortal body, she was very difficult to deal with. Even the old man couldn't kill her. He could only trap her temporarily. As soon as the woman that looked similar to Li Muwan tried to escape, Wang Lin took a deep breath and with one thought, all of the soul fragments connected to form a net. Aside from the few primary souls that were chasing the old man, the rest were all gathered here. A powerful aura came from all sides. Then the woman calmly looked around before her gaze landed on Wang Lin. She let out a laugh and said, "You saved me, yet now you are trapping me. What do you want?" Wang Lin coldly asked, "Do you want to die or live?" The woman smiled and laughed. "No one can kill me here. Even if you were to trap me, I only need to spend a bit of time to escape." Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he said, "Soul flag, fuse." With that, all of the soul fragments rapidly fused with the primary souls. In almost the blink of an eye, all of the soul fragments disappeared, leaving behind only 6 primary souls with power beyond a late-stage soul transformation cultivator but not as powerful as an ascendant cultivator. These 6 primary souls surrounded the woman and coldly stared at her. Wang Lin said, "Destroy." With one word, the 6 primary souls all moved and attacked with various spells and techniques. The woman laughed as her body shattered, and the pieces flew in all directions. Wang Lin was waiting for this, because only when her body was split into water droplets would he be able to find Li Muwan's soul piece. However, just as Wang Lin and the 6 primary souls moved, the entire gorge shook. This tremble came from the ground. Not only here, but the entire Suzaku tomb was shaking right now. As the shaking continued, ripping sounds could be heard from the sky. It was as if there were giant hands tearing the sky open. Countless spatial rifts appeared in the sky. The cold wind coming out of them could freeze a person. These spatial rifts weren't like the ones outside. With those, you could safely enter them if you reach a certain cultivation level. This place was different though. The spatial rifts here weren't real spatial rifts. They merely looked like them. In the Suzaku tomb, there were dimensional cracks which were produced by the special power of the cultivation planet crystal. Even if a soul transformation cultivators were to enter, their soul would immediately die without any exception. As the cultivation planet heart continued to shatter, the cultivation planet crystal's collapse finally started. The earth of the Suzaku tomb began to crack, and many cultivators who entered died under this natural disaster. Even many of the life forms who normally couldn't die were killed. The entire Suzaku tomb was surrounded by a power death aura. The gorge Wang Lin was in was no different. The ground shattered, and a large number of dimensional cracks appeared to devour everything. Wang Lin quickly used the soul flag to call back all the soul fragments. Right now, Wang Lin had no time to worry about the old man. His gaze was locked onto the woman that looked similar to Li Muan. Right now, the woman was in a state of shock, so she revealed a horrified expression that she had never shown before. Her body was slowly collapsing, and then, with a bang, her body turned into countless water droplets. The countless water droplets were also collapsing. This was a real death for her. Wang Lin moved like lightning as he dodged many dimensional cracks and arrived before the mass of water droplets. His right hand reached out and grabbed a crystal-clear water droplet. At the moment he touched the droplet, he felt like he had touched Li Muan. The last 2 days of the month are upon us, wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. Right now, it's about doubling the likes for the VIDEO. Very grateful and will return the favor. Chapter 453, Tuosenis Messenger. As soon as he grabbed the water droplet, he immediately backed up, but a dimensional rift silently appeared before him. With a tearing sound, a large piece of Wang Lin's clothes disappeared. Cold sweat covered Wang Lin's forehead as he carefully evaded the rifts and finally left the gorge. This tremble lasted only 10 breaths of time, but after these 10 breaths, the entire Suzaku tomb was a mess. Countless rifts had appeared on the ground and sky, and many places were on the verge of collapsing. Any small amount of spiritual energy fluctuations could cause a disaster. Anyone who was caught in a rift would die. At this moment, the Suzaku tomb became much more dangerous than before. The collapse of the cultivation planet crystal isn't happening in an instant, but slowly over time. This was all controlled by Zhuxi. This was a game brought about by his madness. After the ground stopped shaking, the mountain range that Wang Lin was just in was now flat. It was as if everything that had just happened before the trembling was a dream. The gentle breeze evaporated the cold sweat from Wang Lin's forehead as a sense of dread filled his heart. He looked at the ruin below him. There were rifts that would open and close. He pressed Li Muan's soul piece against his forehead and put it into the heaven-defying bead. Then he took a deep breath and slowly flew off into the distance. As he flew, his eyes suddenly lit up and he looked toward a collapsed mountain range. The hunchbacked old man was on top of some gravel, but only half of his body was there. His weak origin soul was struggling to leave his body. In the calamity that just happened, he lost half of his body and also his tattoo origin soul. At the moment Wang Lin's gaze landed on him, the old man's eyes revealed panic. He quickly left his body and was about to escape. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He let out a cold snort and quickly chased after the old man. The old man's origin soul was extremely weak, so it wasn't much of a chase. But then a rift suddenly appeared before him without a sound. The old man let out a miserable scream and tried to back up, but he was too late. His entire origin soul was swallowed by the oval rift, and when it disappeared, so did the old man's origin soul. Wang Lin quickly stopped. He silently pondered, and then raised his head to look into the distance. After one round of collapse, this Suzaku tomb had become extremely unstable. If he was careless for just a moment, he could die, so he began to hesitate. A moment later, Wang Lin let out a sigh and flew off into the distance. Planet Suzaku, Sea of Devils. The Sea of Devils was one of the first places that was attacked by the Forsaken Immortal clan. After all, it was very close to the Forsaken Immortal clan's base. Also, the mist that acted as a natural barrier for tens of thousands of years disappeared, and due to attacks from multiple other countries, the Sea of Devils was a mess. At its current state, it had no way of resisting the Forsaken Immortal clan, so it ended up being conquered by them. There was currently a person standing outside the chaotic broken stars in the Sea of Devils. This person was covered in a deathly aura, and his figure couldn't be seen clearly. There were images of skeletons appearing all around him, creating almost a forest of skeletons. He looked at the chaotic broken stars with a look of hesitation. The divine retribution wasn't tea from an ancient cultivator, it was only a junior refining an ancient treasure. This old man has traveled the entire planet in these past few hundred years, and hasn't been able to find any ancient cultivators, so my stomach is getting a bit hungry. Only here can I smell the scent of ancient cultivators, but this place is simply too dangerous. Should I go or not? This person pondered a bit, then his eyes lit up before he started shaking his head and muttering to himself, forget it. I can throw away my life for my appetite. My injuries have recovered somewhat, so it is time to leave planet Suzaku. If I were to be found by that Situnan, there is no way I could win against him in my current state. His eyes became cold as he muttered, I wonder how my old friend Sword Saint Ling Qianhu is doing on planet Qianyun. I should go see him. Maybe I can ask him to help me deal with Situnan and get the whereabouts of that mysterious bead. Just at this moment, his eyes lit up. Then he looked into the distance and said, even back then you liked to hide your head while your tail was showing. Long time no see, Po Jun. A hoarse laugh came from the void. Shortly after, the sky darkened. A large amount of seawater appeared in the sky and moved closer like a 10,000-man cavalry charge. A man wearing a blue robe was standing on top of the waves and walked closer step by step. There was a golden flower pattern embroidered on this man's robe. It looked very intricate. Greed. Could it be that you thought about this place too? Although this man's look was ordinary, there was a hint of viciousness in his eyes. The person surrounded by deathly aura snorted and said, you vex me just by looking at you. If you like this place, you can go inside. I am leaving. With that, he disappeared and flew off into the horizon. The man on top of the seawater began to ponder and then jumped down. He landed outside the chaotic broken stars. The seawater under him turned into a crystal which he then swallowed. Strange, this greed never goes to any place without treasures. Everywhere he goes must have treasures. 10,000 years ago, when I came to planet Suzaku, he had already been here for a long time. Although he was recovering from his injuries, could it have really been for this place instead? The man pondered a bit before walking into the chaotic broken stars. In the sea of blood in the depths of the land of the ancient god, on the only remaining pillar sat a man with a head of messy blood-red hair. He suddenly raised his head. His vicious eyes could be seen underneath his messy hair. His crimson red eyes could shake the heart of any living being. He let out a cruel smile. Another one came the day that I, Tuo Sen, escape will come soon. Very soon, Wang Lin. You must keep my knowledge inheritance safe so I can retrieve it. Without my inheritance of power, your inheritance of knowledge is useless. Also, your inheritance of knowledge is not complete. There is one knowledge crystal that is in my hands. I spent so many years and so much effort to finally find this well-hidden knowledge crystal. After fusing with it, I remembered a lot of things. I could feel a mysterious power growing within the core of this planet over the years. This power is similar to the growth of a baby ancient god. This power is what your cultivators call the cultivation planet crystal. I can use this object to break my seal, and then I can use a soul exchange technique to leave this place. I will have to thank 2C. When he chose this place to divide his consciousness, some of the natives made him a god. This was all recorded in that last knowledge crystal. 2C responded to them by giving them the ancient god sacrificial grounds. Although countless years have passed and that native race is gone, the last stronghold of the Forsaken Immortal clan is the last remaining ancient god sacrificial grounds. If I go there, I can use some of my spells. A junior of the Forsaken Immortal clan was sleeping there, and in order to get the cultivation planet crystal, I sacrificed a lot to push him from the 11-leaf stage to the 12-leaf stage. This allowed him to break the Forsaken Immortal clan out of the seal and kill their way into the cultivation world. All of this has gone according to my plan, and the location of the cultivation planet crystal has finally opened. Wang Lin, my messenger, has finally met you again. Although you have changed a lot, how could I, Tuo Sen, forget you? Your divine sense has been engraved in my heart. No matter where you run, I can find you. Tuo Sen raised his head and began to laugh. His laughter filled the entire blood sea, causing massive waves to surge across the sea. His eyes glowed red. The red from his eyes seemed to be several times thicker than the sea blood. Wang Lin, the day that I, Tuo Sen, escape is near. Once I devour you, I'll be an ancient god, an 8-star ancient god. At that time, Who in this system will be my match? As Tuo Sen laughed, a few squeaking sounds came from the blood sea. Two little monkeys appeared and moved next to Tuo Sen. These two little monkeys' eyes released a demonic red glow. At this very moment in the Suzaku tomb, the eyes of the old man with the creepy smile glowed red. The eyes of the monkey on his shoulder were even more red. When the little monkey let out a squeak, the old man paused for a moment and looked into the distance. His eyes glowed red once more. He came! The old man was about to move out when the monkey on his shoulder let out a growl. But the old man paused a bit before turning around. His goal was the center of the Suzaku tomb. As the old man flew away, the little monkey looked before him and its eyes glowed red. This old man was very fast. This person seemed to be able to detect when those rifts would appear, so he easily dodged them. Although he moved very quickly, there was no danger to him. Shortly after the old man left, a ray of light flew in from the distance and Wang Lin landed. He looked at where the old man was and began to ponder. The end of the month is here. Wishing for the like button for the video. Brothers, do you still have likes for the video? Chapter 454, Strange Treasure. Wang Lin pondered a bit before flying off into the distance. He had his divine sense spread out and was proceeding very carefully. The rifts gave him a headache because with them around, he had no choice but to move slowly. In the last 2 days, Wang Lin passed over many places destroyed by the rifts. He saw a basin in the distance with piercing sword auras that pierced the sky like swords. He scanned the area with his divine sense and found that there were more than 10,000 basins here. They covered an area so huge that he couldn't even see where it ended. There was a long sword stabbed into each basin. Although half of the swords were underground, Wang Lin could clearly feel the powerful sword intent. Metal soul pieces, Wang Lin pondered. He had been inside the Suzaku tomb for a while, and everything was so different from what Situnan told him. Wang Lin wasn't dumb. He already had his own speculations on why this happened. I'm afraid that the Suzaku tomb is in fact the cultivation planet crystal itself. I am in the Suzaku tomb, and also inside the cultivation planet crystal. This is why all these strange life forms were born in the tomb. This is why those strange rifts appeared when the cultivation planet crystal began to shatter. These rifts are the collapse of the cultivation planet crystal. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he looked at the basins before him. This, however, was still only his own speculation. He would need to go to the center of this place to confirm it. If the mountain was there, then he was wrong, but if it wasn't, then he was right. Wang Lin pondered a bit, then he spread out his divine sense and his heart trembled. At the center of this area was a large basin that was covered by a layer of dark blue ice, so no one could see what was inside. However, the sword intent here was the strongest one. It pierced the heavens and gave off an arrogant aura. This aura was not something a normal flying sword could have. Wang Lin personally saw something with a similar aura back at the celestial realm. How could this place have such a thing? Wang Lin looked at the basins before him. The basins covered too large of an area, so it would take too much time to go around. There would also be other life forms along the way anyway, so there was indifference in the amount of danger. Also, the thing in the center basin gave him a familiar feeling. This feeling wasn't from a certain soul piece, but a general familiarity. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin walked into the area of the basins. However, after 100 feet, one of the basins revealed a cold intent. The sword in the basin came out of the ground and flew toward Wang Lin. This was a very common sword. It was 3 feet long, 2 fingers wide, and was completely silver. The tip of the sword was pointed at Wang Lin and releasing waves of sword hums. Scram! A divine sense came from the sword. This divine sense was very tyrannical and was filled with arrogance. Life forms formed by metal elemental souls are similar to a sword spirit. When Wang Lin felt the divine sense inside the sword, his eyes lit up and he thought of something. The sword intent coming from the big basin at the center was very similar to the sword intent from the celestial swords. He touched his bag of holding, and the celestial sword appeared. The moment the celestial sword appeared, the sword from earlier paled in comparison like a firefly next to a roaring fire. Wang Lin shouted, "Shu Li!" Black gas came out from the celestial sword and Shu Liguo took form. He looked at the sword and mischievously laughed. "Grandkid, although your grandpa Shu Liguo only became a sword spirit halfway you." Without waiting for him to speak, the arrogant sword trembled and quickly escaped without any hesitation. This scene stunned Shu Liguo, but then he quickly became arrogant. Run? Did your grandpa Shu Liguo let you run? With that, he carried the celestial sword and chased after it. A sword spirit naturally needs another sword spirit to suppress it. Wang Lin raised his feet and walked forward. Shu Liguo cleared the path for Wang Lin. All of the treasure swords they passed by came out but ran after seeing Shu Liguo. This scene was very strange. It was as if all of the treasure swords were afraid of Shu Liguo. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he calmly watched all of this and continued to walk forward. Shu Liguo was very excited as he let out roars. He would fly here and there with the celestial sword while letting out excited roars. One by one, the treasure swords came out from the basins and gathered at the center basin. Once there, they no longer escaped but floated there, releasing a powerful sword intent and cold aura. Along the way, Wang Lin quickly flew toward the center with Shu Liguo leading the way. There weren't many rifts here. Wang Lin only encountered 3 along the way. This place was one of the few places that weren't heavily affected by the collapse earlier. The deeper he went, the fewer rifts he encountered. Finally, he started moving at his full speed and charged toward the center like a meteor. Several hours later, the large basin in the center came into view. Hundreds of flying swords were floating above the center basin, releasing their sword intent. Wang Lin could feel the powerful sword intent all the way from here. Shu Liguo stopped and didn't dare to move forward. He looked at Wang Lin with a pleasing smile and said, "Master, you saw that I didn't slack off at all along the way and herded all the sword spirits here for you. Now that there isn't much left for me to do, how about I go back into the sword until you wipe out all those sword spirits? I'll come out right after." With that, Shu Liguo quickly returned back toward the celestial sword. However, when half of his body was back inside the sword, Wang Lin grabbed the sword and threw it along with Shu Liguo into the mass of treasure swords. Shu Liguo let out a scream as he quickly retreated back into the celestial sword and was about to control it to escape. "If you can break through this place for me, then it will be useless to keep you." Wang Lin's cold voice echoed in his ears. He secretly complained and cursed Wang Lin in his heart. However, he didn't dare to try to escape anymore. He bit the bullet. He controlled the celestial sword and charged toward the dense mob of treasure swords like crazy while letting out vicious roars. His roars came out through the celestial sword, making them heaven-shaking sword hums. These sword hums could pierce the high heavens and caused all those treasure swords to make a path. At this moment, the blue mist covering the basin began to stir and a half-moon blade floated out. Wang Lin revealed a look of disappointment. When he felt the aura similar to the celestial sword, the first thing he thought of was wealth. Although he knew that it was unlikely, the feeling wouldn't go away. Unfortunately, the item before him was not wealth, but a half-moon blade. Since ancient times, swords and blades were equal in fame, but swords had their pride and blades had their own craze. It was fine if they were just normal pieces of metal, but once they gain a spirit, they can coexist. It was even less likely for a blade that could make countless swords worship it to coexist with a sword, and this blade was not simple. But no matter how extraordinary this blade was, it was still made of countless soul pieces, so it was impossible to take it with him. Even if he manages to take it once he leaves the cultivation planet crystal, it will shatter into countless soul pieces, and they would return to their owners. Wang Lin secretly sighed. He was about to raise his hand to call back the celestial sword and charge out of his place when he suddenly stared at the mysterious blade. That's not right. The blade's spirit was not made by countless soul pieces but just one. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He had seen many life forms since he arrived here, and all of them were made of countless soul pieces. None of them were made of just one soul piece like this blade spirit. When the half-moon blade flew out of the basin, all of the surrounding swords let out sword hums as if they were paying respects to their lord before backing away. Shu Liguo saw the half-moon blade from inside the celestial sword and began to become nervous. He had always been a scaredy cat, so after seeing all the other swords back away, he wanted to submit as well but was afraid of Wang Lin. His tremble transmitted to the celestial sword, causing it to tremble slightly. The half-moon blade appeared next to the celestial sword by using some mysterious method. With a ding, the celestial sword was pushed back, but there wasn't a single scratch on it. Shu Liguo let out a scream and flew toward Wang Lin without any hesitation. Wang Lin frowned. He always knew that Shu Liguo was a scaredy cat, but he didn't think Shu Liguo would run without even fighting. Wang Lin's right hand reached out and the celestial sword flew into his grasp. At this moment, the half-moon blade quickly closed in. Wang Lin quickly backed up and at the same time swung the sword, creating a wave of sword energy that collided with the half-moon blade. With a bang, the sword energy collided with the half-moon blade, but the half-moon blade wasn't damaged at all. Instead, it glowed even brighter and colder as it sent out a divine sense message. Leave behind. His soul you, leave. After the divine sense message was sent out, the half-moon blade suddenly grew until it was 100 feet tall and sent out a heaven-splitting wave of blade energy. The end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video. Don't hold back, it's expiring. Chapter 455, Red Butterfly. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. As he backed up, he raised the celestial sword to block before him. The blade energy closed in, and with a bang, Wang Lin was blown back. Using this force, Wang Lin backed away. The power of that blade energy was as strong as a full power attack from a late-stage soul transformation cultivator. Without using the 1 billion soul flag, there was no way Wang Lin could match it. Wang Lin quickly backed away. He didn't escape the same way he came but to the opposite direction. He went deeper into the Suzaku tomb. Waves of divine sense messages were sent out from the blade. It was commanding all of the treasure swords to chase after Wang Lin. Wang Lin moved very quickly as he passed one basin after another. Countless treasure swords were chasing after him with the half-moon blade in the back. The celestial sword was already put away, so he could fly with all his might. The treasure swords from the basins before him all flew out and closed in on him, surrounding him completely. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as his right hand reached out, and the 1 billion soul flag appeared. The soul flag turned into black fog and surrounded Wang Lin, causing his speed to increase several fold. The treasure swords coming at him from the front all missed, but they quickly turned around to chase after him. At this moment, there was an endless sea of treasure swords behind Wang Lin. They were creating a sword intent that could destroy the heavens. The cold aura they created was causing the temperature to drop so much that even frost was appearing. It felt like the sword hums were the only things remaining in the world. The sword hum shook the heavens and the earth. This sound was so loud that cultivators within tens of thousands of kilometers all heard this. Many cultivators flew toward this location to see what was happening. Each of the swords released sword hums and a cold aura. When all of the swords combined, they seemed to have formed an ancient sword immortal. Rays of sword energy passed by Wang Lin from behind him. Wang Lin, who was surrounded by the soul flag, moved around like a cloud of smoke. Even though many sword energies still landed on him, they were all blocked by the soul flag. Only when the sword energy from the half-moon blade closed in would Wang Lin take out the celestial sword to block it. This whole situation was very exciting to Wang Lin. It made him remember the old days when he was being hunted by others back when his cultivation level was still low. Just at this moment, 2 rays of light flew toward Wang Lin. They stopped 5,000 kilometers away, but when they noticed what was happening, they quickly turned to escape. Wang Lin let out a laugh as he turned around and looked at the countless treasure swords behind him and the half-moon blade. He teleported and reappeared 5,000 kilometers away. However, as soon as he reappeared, those treasure swords that were about to catch up to him released a bright flash and instantly closed the distance. A thunderous rumble echoed through the tomb and the aura of destruction from when the tomb was collapsing seemed to reappear. As the 2 rays of light quickly escaped, Wang Lin immediately recognized the 2 people. One of these 2 was a male, and the other one was a female. Just from seeing his ears, Wang Lin knew that he was Zhou Wutai. As for the woman, she was wearing a purple veil. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he recognized her as well. Although Wang Lin was being chased by all the treasure swords, his expression was calm, and he laughed. "Don't leave, Brother Zhou. Wait for me for a moment." Zhou Wutai's expression was ugly as he muttered, "Unlucky." He pretended not to hear Wang Lin and flew even faster. As for the woman, the moment she saw Wang Lin, she revealed a face full of fear and quickly escaped. Just like this, the 2 of them flew in front with Wang Lin behind them, followed by countless swords. The half-moon blade would occasionally appear and send out a wave of blade energy. This blade energy was the only thing that Wang Lin was really worried about. Every time one was thrown at him, he had to dodge it quickly. The half-moon blade was very strange. Thanks to his divine sense, he noticed that every time this half-moon blade reached a certain speed, a mysterious power would force it to slow down. Otherwise, it could have easily caught up to Wang Lin. The three of them were flying at their top speeds. After 3 incense sticks of time, the edge of the basin-filled area appeared in their view. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately teleported. When he reappeared, he was already at the edge of the area. As soon as he appeared, he immediately charged off without a moment of pause. Zhou Wutai hesitated a bit before chasing after Wang Lin. As for the woman, she hesitated a bit before choosing another direction and split off from Zhou Wutai. The treasure swords all stopped here. Only the half-moon blade didn't stop at all and charged out of the area of the basins. After the half-moon blade left the basins, its speed suddenly exploded. The mysterious force that was slowing it down seemed to have weakened, causing its speed to reach an unimaginable level. In almost a blink of an eye, the half-moon blade went past by Zhou Wutai and charged toward Wang Lin. Zhou Wutai's forehead was covered in cold sweat. When the blade passed by him, he didn't notice it at all. He only felt a powerful wind and saw a black dot disappear into the horizon. What is that item? What fast speed? It is at least tens of times faster than before. Zhou Wutai's heart was shocked as he chased after Wang Lin and the blade. While Wang Lin was flying away, he had to slow down because after leaving the basin area, the rifts began to appear more and more often. After spending some time dodging rifts, he chose to stop on top of a mountain. When he looked into the distance, he could see a mountain giving off a rainbow-colored glow. This mountain looked exactly the same as the spirit mountain Sichu Nan had described to him. Almost instantly after he stopped, a thunderous roar charged in from the distance. Wang Lin was already prepared and immediately teleported 10,000 feet away. With a bang, the mountain he was just at collapsed. With a flash of blue light, the half-moon blade flew out from the rubble. At the same time, a divine message came out from the half-moon blade. Leave him here. Wang Lin's body disappeared again, but this time he felt pain from his left arm. When he reappeared 10,000 feet away, the sleeve on his left arm was gone and a wound appeared. What fast speed! After Wang Lin reappeared, he teleported again. He didn't dare to teleport too far, because if he ended up near a rift, it would be dangerous. As a result, every time Wang Lin teleported, there would be a flash of blue light, and the spot Wang Lin was just at would collapse. That half-moon blade seemed to have gone mad chasing after Wang Lin. With a flash, Wang Lin teleported 10,000 feet away and immediately moved to the side. Then a rift silently appeared next to where he was. Right after Wang Lin teleported, a flash of blue light went through where he just was. Everything in the path of the blue light was destroyed, including mountains, the earth, and even some of the rifts that appeared before it all collapsed. Seeing this caused Wang Lin's skull to tingle. He once more teleported without any hesitation. This time he felt pain from his right leg and fresh blood was spewing out of it. After appearing 5 kilometers away, Wang Lin's right hand rubbed over the wound, causing it to close and the blood to disappear. What kind of treasure is this? A trace of greed appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. He had only ever seen this kind of speed on one other thing, and that was the 4th soul from the soul flag. After comparing the two, their speeds were almost exactly the same, only the power of the blade was stronger. After all, being pierced by the needle might hurt, but being hit by the blade might result in your head rolling on the ground. This is made of just one soul piece. Who does this soul piece belong to have such powerful metal elemental power? This blade is a treasure! Wang Lin's body disappeared again, and everything around the spot he was just in collapsed once more. The blade became even faster, and Wang Lin soon became unable to keep up. If he was careless for just a moment, he would be injured. Now he knew why Zhuge Zi dreaded the 4th soul so much. I must made it mine. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he took out the celestial sword. With one flick, Shu Liguo was forced out of the celestial sword by him. Shu Liguo, bear with it for a while like you did with the giant demon clan ancestor. Once I get my soul piece back, I'll come and save you. With that, Wang Lin waved his hand and Shu Liguo flew into the air. Shu Liguo let out a cry and was about to escape when the half-moon blade caught him and they disappeared. Shu Liguo's cry came from the distance. Master, you mustn't forget to save me. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he held the celestial sword. He and Shu Liguo were linked, so he could feel where he was. Also, the blade spirit shouldn't hurt Shu Liguo because it had other intentions. And Shu Liguo was a devil, so he was not easily destroyed. Right now he was in a rush and didn't have the time to deal with the blade at the moment. With Shu Liguo's bait, he will have plenty of time in the future to get it. After he put the celestial sword away, he looked at the rainbow-colored mountain in the distance and was about to fly there. However, just at this moment, his expression changed, and he turned around to look at a nearby mountain. There he saw a red figure. This figure was filled with hollowness and loneliness. She stood there like a red butterfly that wanted to leave with the wind but was forced to stay. Red butterfly. A grand chapter. Not caring to read 4,500 words, can bear to split it into 2 chapters. As the donkey dies a martyr, tears flow wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 456 Rose Red. If Red Butterfly was here, then Qianfeng was also around. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and his divine sense spread out. Qianfeng was at the mid-stage of soul transformation, so if he wanted to hide himself, it would be hard for Wang Lin to find him. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he clasped his hands at Red Butterfly, and said loudly, "Long time no see, fellow cultivator Red Butterfly." The red figure in the not-so-distant peak was filled with a sense of hollowness. She gave Wang Lin a deep look and then, in the blink of an eye, she disappeared from the mountain and reappeared 1,000 feet from him. After she got close, her hollow and empty eyes were imprinted in Wang Lin's mind. His expression became very ugly. He had heard about what happened to Red Butterfly and even noticed her presence when he battled Qianfeng. But today was the first time he truly met her again after battling her. What Wang Lin saw in Red Butterfly's eyes was only death. The current Red Butterfly was still beautiful, but Wang Lin could no longer see the prideful and arrogant daughter of heaven she once was. The Red Butterfly from back then was a Shuiyui's genius, the blessed daughter of the heavens, someone who reached the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years. She considered Wang Lin a mere ant, and their small encounters eventually led to their decisive battle. Although this was the case, in Wang Lin's heart, he still respected her. This respect was one's acknowledgement of their opponent. Seeing that his past opponent was now like this made Wang Lin sigh. The phrase, "while things may remain the same, people don't wasn't wrong at all." Comparing her past self to now, Wang Lin would rather see the prideful Red Butterfly from before. Only by fighting people like her could he step toward the peak of cultivation. Wang Lin let out a sigh. He buried the regret in his heart as he looked at Red Butterfly and shouted, "Qianfeng, come out!" Red Butterfly stood there looking up into the sky with eyes devoid of emotion. Qianfeng's voice came from the void. "Seng Niu, I don't have time to deal with you today. Since you found this place, we will meet at the Spirit Mountain." Wang Lin suddenly turned around and looked at a mountain in the distance. A black fog came out from the mountain and charged toward the Spirit Mountain at a shocking pace. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He let out a cold snort and was about to charge toward the Spirit Mountain. "Red Butterfly, didn't you want to battle Seng Niu again? I'll give you that chance today. Kill him!" Qianfeng's voice came from the distance, and then he disappeared. "Seng Niu, this is a good chance to catch up with your old friend, so take your time. Once I get my soul piece, I'll come and deal with you." The hollowness in Red Butterfly's eyes disappeared and was replaced with the urge to battle. She moved before Wang Lin to block him and took out a red long sword. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out from Red Butterfly. This aura was no weaker than Wang Lin's and contained celestial spiritual energy. Although her cultivation level wasn't at the soul transformation stage yet, it wasn't far from it. "Seng Niu!" A cold voice came from Red Butterfly as her cold gaze locked onto Wang Lin. Wang Lin slightly frowned as he looked at her. He was not in a rush to find Qianfeng, and he didn't expect the Spirit Mountain to be here. If they really were inside the cultivation planet crystal, then the Spirit Mountain shouldn't exist. However, now that he did see the Spirit Mountain, this whole thing was strange. But since Qianfeng wanted to go scout it, let him. Red Butterfly's eyes lit up, and she waved the red sword. The sword flew out of her hand and shot toward Wang Lin's head like lightning. Wang Lin backed up. Then his right hand touched his bag of holding, and the restriction flag appeared in his hand. He shook the flag, and countless restrictions flew out, forming shields before him. The red sword landed on the layers of shields, creating a series of thunderous rumbles that echoed throughout the area. A large amount of dirt and sand was blown into the air. A red flash could be seen inside dirt and sand as Red Butterfly quickly charged out. A piece of red ice was now in her hand. The red ice discharged a cold aura and immediately covered the surrounding area with it. As Red Butterfly closed in, her battle intent flickered for a moment, revealing a deep sense of sorrow. As she closed in, her lips trembled. "Kill me." A faint voice came from her mouth, but the sorrow from her eyes disappeared and was replaced by that powerful battle intent. Her power was at its peak as she charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's heart trembled. When he heard Red Butterfly's voice, his gaze toward her became complicated. Red Butterfly hadn't lost all her sanity yet. There was still a sliver of it that was hidden very well. Red Butterfly was proud. Her pride came from her bones, from her very being. She was as proud as a rose from the moment she was born. The sliver of sanity she kept well hidden would rather die than live the life of a dog. Wang Lin took a deep breath and faced the incoming Red Butterfly. His right hand reached out, and strands of restriction gas started glowing while gathering in his hand. A 30-foot-long black lance formed in his hand. Holding the lance in one hand, Wang Lin's eyes were like lightning. Then he looked at Red Butterfly and thrusted the lance at her. The sound created by the thrust was similar to the sound of hundreds of ghosts wailing. This sound came from the tip of the lance and echoed throughout the area. She suddenly pressed the red piece of ice on her forehead. At this moment, a red light shone from her forehead, and then layers of red ice spread from it, forming a set of red armor. This armor covered her completely and released a cold aura. The light illuminating the armor made her even more beautiful. The current her was like a war celestial. Next, the armor started glowing red and a black whip suddenly appeared in her hand. The Soul Lasher. This whip was given to her by Qianfeng to deal with Wang Lin. Red Butterfly's eyes revealed a mysterious light as she snapped the whip in her hand, causing a series of popping sounds from where the whip passed through. The whip moved like a dragon and shot toward Wang Lin like lightning. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and the lance moved at the same time. He backed up and formed a seal with his hand while muttering something. A gust of wind containing celestial spiritual energy shot out from the tip of the lance. The Soul Lasher and the lance collided. Boom! The shockwave that resulted from the whip and lance colliding was so powerful that it seemed like the heavens and earth were going to collapse. The gust of wind pushed all the force of the shockwave toward Red Butterfly. This all happened in a split second. The moment the Soul Lasher hit the lance, it flew out of her hand. The Soul Lasher moved like black lightning as it charged through the shockwave toward Wang Lin. With a bang, Wang Lin quickly backed up more than 1,000 feet. His eyes revealed a mysterious light as he muttered, "Soul Lasher!" This whip was once his, but he had to give it back right after taking it. Now that he saw this whip again, he had to keep it this time. As for Red Butterfly, with the gust pushing the shockwave at her, she had to back up. A large amount of cold aura came out from the red armor and extended forward. Waves of cracking sounds could be heard as various ice sculptures formed in the air before her. This cold aura froze the shockwave, turning it from something intangible to something tangible. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he stared at the armor. Red Butterfly raised her hand and pointed at the ice sculptures before her. A series of crackling sounds could be heard as cracks appeared on the outer layer of the sculptures. The cracks expanded like crazy. In the blink of an eye, there were no smooth surfaces left on the ice sculptures, and with a bang, they shattered. "Kill me, Red Butterfly" revealed a struggling expression. Her face was filled with pain. At this moment, the Soul Lasher was moving around her body like a dragon, and her armor was releasing waves of cold aura. Wang Lin looked at Red Butterfly and silently nodded. He touched his bag of holding and a giant axe appeared in his hand. The sky darkened as soon as this axe appeared, and all of the light gathered on the axe's blade. Strands of purple lightning moved from the axe to Wang Lin's body, causing a series of crackling sounds to emit from his body. At this moment, a desire for battle that he had never felt before appeared in his heart. This axe was summoned by the giant demon clan ancestor before he died. It was the weapon of the giant demon clan founding ancestor who was trapped under the corpse sect in Zhao. After Wang Lin got it, he was originally going to let his original body use it. However, now that the celestial sword didn't have a sword spirit to unleash its full power, and he didn't want to use the soul flag, this was the best weapon for him to use with his full power. Red Butterfly stared at Wang Lin and opened her mouth. A red light flew out from her mouth and took the form of a crystal red rose. This rose started floating before her. Then it suddenly opened. As it bloomed, a red smoke came from the flower, and a figure that looked just like Red Butterfly appeared within the smoke. This figure contained a powerful sense of pride. It was exactly the same as the red butterfly that Wang Lin remembered. Sang Niu, act now. The red butterfly in the red smoke was filled with pride as she looked at Wang Lin. Big brothers and little sisters, do you still have likes for the video? Wishing for the like button for the video to help. Chapter 457, Like a Butterfly. At this moment, 5,000 kilometers away from Wang Lin and Red Butterfly S battle, Zhou Wutai was still flying. His cultivation level was below Wang Lin S, so he was still catching up. The moment that half-moon blade zoomed past him, it shocked him greatly. He had never seen anything that fast before in his life. As he was flying, Zhou Wutai suddenly frowned and stopped. Then he turned around and looked behind him. He saw a red cloud closing in from the distance. It was causing the entire sky to turn red. Even the rifts in the sky disappeared due to the red cloud. Zhou Wutai let out a sigh. He immediately became very respectful and stood still. The red cloud was like an ancient, fierce beast flying through the sky. When it passed over Zhou Wutai, an ancient voice came from within it. Come in. Zhou Wutai quickly responded and flew into the red cloud. There was an old man in red clothes inside the red cloud. He was staring into the distance. Although his feet were in moving, the red cloud was flying at incredible speed. Zhou Wutai respectfully stood beside the old man. Zhou Wutai greets Senior. The old man nodded and looked into the distance. His eyes seemed to be able to penetrate into the distance and see Wang Lin and Red Butterfly S battle 5,000 kilometers away. He pondered a bit before calmly asking, Where's Zixin? Zhou Wutai answered, Zixin and I encountered Wang Lin, and then she left by herself. The old man sighed and said, Forget it. Let's ignore her. You follow me to the Spirit Mountain. With that, the red cloud sped toward the Spirit Mountain. The old man was Xianxia. The Forsaken Immortal clan used the Ancestor S skull. With the tattoo power of a 12-leaf shaman, they were able to break through the cultivation planet Crystal S seal and send Xianxia inside. However, if the ancestor was still alive, he might have been able to break the restriction on the cultivation planet Crystal completely. Because they only had the tattoo power from his skull, the situation wasn't exactly ideal. Although they were able to send Xianxia inside, there was a time limit. Once that time limit is up, Xianxia will be killed by the mysterious power of the cultivation planet Crystal. This was why the moment he entered, he didn't waste any time and charged straight toward the Spirit Mountain at the center. At this moment, Qianfeng was also charging toward the Spirit Mountain. Besides the two of them, there were a few other people rushing toward the center of the Suzaku tomb. Among these people were members of the Forsaken Immortal clan and some cultivators. At this very moment, there was an old man who was already at the Spirit Mountain. Although he looked normal, his eyes gave off a blood-red glow. There was a small monkey on his shoulder. The red glow from the monkey's eyes was even stronger. The old man was standing on top of the Spirit Mountain. In the void above the mountain was a door that emitted a blinding golden light. This door was more than 1,000 feet tall, and it had a very eye-catching scar-like crack going down its center. The red in the old man's eyes became more intense as he looked at the door. He let out a creepy smile as he sat down and began to cultivate. The monkey on his shoulder looked all around with a vicious gaze. Back to Wang Lin and Red Butterfly. The glistening red rose gave off a tender charm. The image of Red Butterfly was the sliver of divine sense she had been keeping hidden. This was the real her. She looked at Wang Lin with eyes filled with pride and whispered, Sang you, act now, kill me. This life without my will is not worth living. I, Red Butterfly, would rather die than live this life. Scenes of Red Butterfly flashed through Wang Lin's head as she spoke. A blessed daughter of the heavens ended up in such a state. How sad. Wang Lin let out a sigh. What he saw in this image of Red Butterfly wasn't pride, but sorrow, a very well-hidden sorrow in her heart. This sorrow contained a very deep sense of pain. Looking at it would cause anyone's heart to tremble. Red Butterfly, I'll grant your wish. Wang Lin's eyes became serious. Then he waved the axe. He suddenly jumped into the air, let out a roar and threw the axe. The axe shot toward Red Butterfly like a meteor surrounded by lightning. This axe carried a powerful aura. As it crossed the sky shook as if it were about to collapse. As the axe got closer to the ground, it caused the ground to crack and shatter. Red Butterfly raised her head and looked at the axe. The sliver of divine sense left in the rose turned into smoke and entered her body's forehead. At this moment, Red Butterfly's eyes were no longer filled with hollowness and battle intent. At this moment, Red Butterfly's eyes were filled with clarity, pride, and hate. Red Butterfly slowly revealed a faint smile. This smile was filled with joy. It was something rarely seen on her face. The current her was like an innocent maiden who had dropped all the worries from her heart. A monstrous battle intent came from the axe as it descended from the sky. It was as if there was an invisible giant holding the axe and swinging it down. Although the smile on Red Butterfly's face was beautiful, it still contained a hint of pride. This pride was her true self. Red Butterfly spent her entire life being proud. And even at the moment of her death, she was still proud. Her pride was as high as the clouds and as captivating as a bright red butterfly. The axe pierced the sky, creating a powerful gust of wind and a series of sonic booms that echoed through the heavens. Red Butterfly hadn't even lived for 200 years yet, but just like that bright red butterfly, although its life was fleeting, its beauty and pride were things people wouldn't be able to forget. Although her pride made many people unhappy, although her ruthlessness made it hard for people to get close to her, she was Red Butterfly. The proud Red Butterfly. The axe closed in on Red Butterfly. When it was less than 100 feet away from her, it released a destructive force. At this moment, if Red Butterfly wanted to resist, she had the power to do so. If she wanted to dodge, she had the ability to do so. However, she didn't resist or dodge it. At this moment, her eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and the pride in her eyes was getting stronger and stronger. However, mixed in with that pride was a sliver of regret. Although it was hidden well, Wang Lin still saw it. In her last few moments, Red Butterfly met her master. She saw her master's face and heard her voice. She remembered her debt to her master for raising her and her master's gentle and harsh words when she was a young woman. All of these appeared in her eyes. In addition to her master, there was another figure, a weak-looking youth. His eyes were still gentle as he silently watched her. After seeing this figure, Red Butterfly revealed a faint smile. The scenes were still flashing before her eyes until it stopped on one figure. His eyes were filled with love for Red Butterfly. He was the one who dared to steal the soul lasher regardless of the consequences. Goodbye. Red Butterfly's smile slowly froze. The axe arrived. The red rose before Red Butterfly released a blinding light as the petals flew off one by one. A stream of blood came from Red Butterfly's mouth, and her eyes slowly dimmed, but that deep sense of pride from between her eyebrows didn't weaken. Next year, when the flowers bloom, there will be a field of roses on planet Suzaku. There will be a blue rose that will bloom in the northern plains. Wang Lin, that is my gift to you. The rose that lost its petals only had the stem left. When the axe closed in on it, it completely collapsed and disappeared. A red mark appeared between her eyebrows as blood spewed out. It looked very shocking. Red Butterfly, you will face one trial in your life. It will be a life and death trial. If you pass it, then the rest of your life will be without trouble. If you can pass it, then all will be lost. Master used her life to help you foresee this, so please be careful. Red Butterfly, I'm afraid your trial will be related to Xianxia. He can be left alive. Red Butterfly was covered in blood, and her vision turned red. Master, you foresaw Red Butterfly's trial, but unfortunately you only saw the person caught in the middle and not Qianfeng, who was my real trial. The axe pierced through Red Butterfly's body and landed on the ground. It created a deep hole on the ground, and black smoke slowly came out from that hole. Cracks appeared on Red Butterfly's armor. The cracks slowly spread until they covered the entire armor. She closed her eyes, and her body exploded into a mist of blood. A gentle breeze scattered the mist of blood, causing tiny blood crystals to cover the area. Heaven's blessed daughter, Red Butterfly, died. Wang Lin, help me kill Qianfeng, please. Wang Lin floated in the air and silently pondered. He raised his head and seemed to have heard Red Butterfly's final message. As captivating as a butterfly, although it was short, the butterfly's beauty was engraved in people's hearts, making it hard to forget. Red Butterfly died, leaving behind only a piece of jade and the soul lasher. These two items floated there, giving off a lonely aura. Qianfeng's domain is endless desire. He wants to devour everything. To obtain everything in truth, how can domains be devoured? What Qianfeng wants was the moment of connecting with the heavens when one comprehends their domain. He devours domains to obtain different comprehensions until he can refine his own domain to completion. The information on his jade was what Red Butterfly learned by observing Qianfeng in these past few years. Just in time to keep the manuscript. Tonight's update might not be timely. If there's no second watch tonight, Leo will supplement tomorrow. However, Leo will try his best to finish today. Chapter 45, Low Life. With that, his eyes lit up, and he began to shout. Fellow brothers of the Hang Yue sect, there is an old saying, killing people only takes a nod of the head. But I have to ask everyone, how could killing people be as satisfying as disgracing them? By disgracing them, they would stink for 10,000 years. Think about it. When you are fighting with your rival and you use this, even if you win, you still come out with more face than them. Or when escaping, if you have this move, it also works wonders. If you run into a crowded area, how would he still have the face to chase after you? Also, if you encounter a love rival, this could also be a deciding move. Hey, if anyone dares to steal your woman, use this on them, and then he would never have a chance, as she would never want to be around the stink. Li Shan's advertising moved a lot of the inner sect disciples, especially when he talked about how it could be used against love rivals. That really resonated with some of the disciples. This thing was really a top-quality item to get rid of love rivals. Li Shan's gaze shifted toward Wang Lin in the distance. He knew that Wang Lin was considered trash in the Hang Yue sect. People like him were big customers for Li Shan. The trash back in the Xuan Dao sect had already been cleaned out by him, so, when he saw Wang Lin, he excitedly continued. This bomb is especially useful for brothers with lower cultivation. With this stink bomb in hand, who would dare to bully you again? If anyone dares to bully you, throw one at them. I, Li Shan, can promise you that you can walk tall in the sect without anyone daring to bother you. With that, Li Shan secretly laughed in his heart. No one daring to bully you was impossible. It was more like it would invite a beating. Li Shan saw that he had almost won many people over. He quickly tried to seal the deal. This stink bomb is a really good self-defense weapon for the people with lower cultivation. Today I'll have a sale. Buy two, get one. Consider it a gift from me. When we meet again in the cultivation world, don't forget to take care of me. Among the disciples that were moved by everything he said, one asked, is this item really as amazing as you say? Take out a few more and let me randomly test one. If it's really that good, I'll buy a few to play with. Li Shan took out a dozen of the stink bombs from his bag of holding and gently placed them on the ground, as if he was afraid they would explode, and said, you must keep in mind to be careful with this treasure. Gently pick it up and place it down. When using it, just toss it. When it meets any resistance, it will explode. The inner disciple that had spoken up was Sun Hao. Sun Hao stepped up and randomly carefully picked up one of the stink bombs and examined it in his hand. Li Shan's expression remained normal, but he quietly mocked him in his heart. Little brat, think you can understand it? Besides the sect's elders, not even the senior brothers are able to see through its secret. Sun Hao looked at it for a long time and wasn't able to find anything special about the stink bomb. He threw the stink bomb into a distant clearing, and as the bomb flew in an arc, the moment it was about to hit the ground, Li Shan thought in his mind, explode! With a bang, the stink bomb exploded, making the ground black and filled with a foul odor. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. No one knew that his divine sense had covered the area. When the stink bomb exploded, he detected a fluctuation of spirit power from Li Shan. When Li Shan threw the stink bomb the first time, it was the same. Wang Lin chuckled, but he didn't point it out and kept on watching. Li Shan said, smiling, how was it? These stink bombs are really powerful, right? But I, Li Shan, am an honest man, so I'll say the ugly stuff now. This treasure doesn't explode all the time. To make it explode requires a certain throwing technique. Once you guys have bought it, you can figure it yourself, so don't come to me about it. Sun Hao walked up to Li Shan and whispered something to him. They walked over to the side and he took out quite a few things. Li Shan thought about it for a while and took out 10 stink bombs to exchange. Li Shan whispered, you normally only get 3 free for buying 6, but since you are the first buyer, I'll throw in 1 more for free. After one person traded for them first and even tested it, a few other inner disciples came up and bought a few. Every time Li Shan finished his sale, he would always add a few words. Things like this thing isn't guaranteed to succeed all the time. If it doesn't work, practice it a few more times. If there was any question, they could come and ask him, and he could teach them the throwing technique. When saying this, Li Shan laughed in his heart. You guys will try several times and fail, then try a different one and succeed after 1 or 2 tries. I am only going to be here for a few days, so by the time you guys suspect me, I'll be long gone. but there were still many disciples who were cautious and didn't buy any. After a while, there were only a few stink bombs left. Li Shan proudly looked at the Heng Yu sect disciples and thought, a bunch of idiots. If you guys don't use it in the exchange in 3 days, then all you have done is get cheated by me. But if you do use it, then there will be something good to watch. These stink bombs are completely under my control. Other people can even explode it using a hammer. I really can wait for the exchange in 3 days. His gaze swept the surroundings, and he noticed Wang Lin's faint smile. He was stunned. His eyes turned and he said, "Brother, why don't you buy a few to play with? With your cultivation, these are truly fitting for you. If anyone bothers you, just throw one at them." Wang Lin looked at Li Shan and revealed a mocking expression. Li Shan was surprised. That look made him feel as if Wang Lin had seen through his secret. He carefully looked at Wang Lin and saw that Wang Lin was only at the R&D layer. Being called trash couldn't have been for no reason, so he thought that it must have been his own imagination. Wang Lin lightly smiled. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll exchange for 2, but I don't have any treasures. Only talismans from the sect." Li Shan hesitated for the first time. He made sure Wang Lin was only at the 3rd layer before he finally relaxed and took out 3 stink bombs. He smiled and said, "Brother, I'll give you face and sell them for talismans. Buy 2, get 1. These stink bombs will give you an extraordinary feeling, haha." Finished speaking, he thought, I wasn't lying when I said it will be an extraordinary feeling. As long as you hold on to the stink bombs, even if you don't use it during the exchange, if I ever meet you again, I'll let you know what the extraordinary feeling is like. Something you will remember for life, haha. Reading so much. Besides, the golden keyboard is active. I ask everyone to support a bit more, not just words of support. I'm afraid I can't even carry the last 3. Chapter all gathered. Wang Lin silently watched Red Butterfly's body scatter. When it was over, he let out a sigh, landed on the ground and waved his right hand. The axe flew back to him and was put back into his bag of holding. Then he reached out and grabbed the soul lasher from the sky. After carefully examining it, he put it into his bag of holding as well. There was a strand of ascendant-level divine sense on the soul lasher which Wang Lin couldn't remove for now. But as long as he had it in his hands, he was confident that after all of this is over, he can use the 1 billion soul flag to break the divine sense left on it and truly obtain the soul lasher. After doing all of this, Wang Lin looked once more at the spot where Red Butterfly disappeared and shook his head. Then he took a step and his body disappeared. He started charging toward the spirit mountain in the distance. At this moment, the red cloud Xianxia was in rushed through the spirit mountain and arrived directly at the top of the mountain. Once it got there, the red cloud turned into a tornado and descended onto the mountain peak. Xianxia walked out of the red tornado and Zhou Wutai respectfully followed him out. Xianxia saw the old man sitting on the top of the mountain with the little monkey on his shoulder. He frowned slightly, but then he took a closer look and his expression changed. Xianxia stared at the old man and said, "I wonder which fellow cultivator it is to come through possession. Why not come with your real body?" The old man opened his eyes. He casually looked at Xianxia and said, "You and I don't know each other, so why would it matter if I came with my real body or not? Or do you think you would be able to recognize this old man?" The little monkey screeched at Xianxia and its eyes glowed red. Xianxia's eyes were calm as he looked at the monkey and then he smiled. "So it is a puppet." The old man's eyes became red as he stared at Xianxia. Just at this moment, the monkey on the old man's shoulder screeched. The red disappeared from the old man's eyes and he said, "I am Moli Hai." With that, a vicious intent flashed across his eyes before he closed them and resumed his cultivation. Although this person looks like he is at the late stage of soul transformation, there is a mysterious feeling about him. Normal people wouldn't be able to detect this. Only people who have reached the ascendant stage can clearly feel this. This person isn't from planet Suzaku. Xianxia looked at the old man once more before withdrawing his gaze. He then looked at the giant door and silently pondered. With his understanding of the Suzaku tomb, he felt very shocked the entire way here. This was completely different from what the previous Suzaku told him. Those life forms were clearly formed by the mysterious power of the cultivation planet crystal. From what he remembered, the previous Suzaku told him that those life forms only appeared in the inner part of the Suzaku tomb. However, the spirit mountain was still the same. The door was the only way into the tomb of the first Suzaku. The cultivation planet crystal was stored inside the first Suzaku's tomb. However, this door was impossible to open without the cultivation planet heart. If he wants to enter, he will have to wait until it shatters to a certain degree. As Yunke-Z examined the door, his expression slightly changed. He looked at the bottom of the spirit mountain and then withdrew his gaze. Shortly after, Xianfeng's figure quickly moved from the bottom of the spirit mountain to the top. When he appeared, he very cautiously looked at Yunke-Z, then he moved to the side and found a corner to sit in. It didn't take long before several more people arrived. 2 of them were 8-leaf shamans. When they arrived and saw Yunke-Z, they were very happy. They quickly went up to him and stood next to him with looks of respect. There was also a cultivator who arrived. He was wearing a blue robe as well as a fierce mask that covered his face. The mask gave off a blue aura that prevented divine senses from getting through. After he got to the top of the mountain, he looked around and then silently sat on the side. 1 hour later, 3 rays of light were rushing across the sky toward here, but just as the 3 rays of light got closer, the entire spirit mountain shook. The door also shook violently and more cracks appeared on it. At this moment, not only was the spirit mountain shaking, but the entire Suzaku tomb was shaking. Similar to the first incident, a large amount of earth collapsed into nothingness and a large number of rifts appeared everywhere. The sky was the same. Collapse occurred everywhere. The 3 rays of light never made it to the spirit mountain because all 3 of them died to a rift that appeared close to them. The shaking this time lasted longer than before. It lasted for 30 breaths of time before it stopped. During this time, the entire outer section collapsed into a void filled with dangerous rifts. There were still cultivators trying to enter the Suzaku tomb at the foot of Mount Suzaku, but everyone that entered was immediately killed by the rifts. Gradually, more and more people entered, but it seemed like the Suzaku tomb had lost its restriction that was preventing people from entering. After a while, some cultivators realized that something was wrong. It finally became too strange and no one dared to enter that passage again. In their eyes, that passage had become a demonic beast that devoured cultivators. If you walk in, you will die. On the spirit mountain in the center of the Suzaku tomb, even more cracks appeared on the door and some cracks connected together. After the shaking was over, Yunke-Z's eyes lit up and he looked at the door. Then he activated celestial spiritual energy and waved his right hand. A giant handprint suddenly appeared and landed on the door. With one press, the door shook, but the cracks on it didn't increase, and the handprint disappeared. Yunke-Z frowned and gloomily waited for the next collapse. However, his gaze would occasionally look at the foot of the mountain as if he were waiting for something. At this moment, a purple figure walked up from the foot of the mountain. This person was a woman wearing a purple veil. She wasn't by herself. Following her were 4 old men with tattoos glowing on their foreheads. Each old man was at the late stage of soul formation, and there were many wounds on their bodies. This woman was Zixin. The reason she and Zhou Wutai could arrive here by themselves was because both of them had several tattoo puppets. These tattoo puppets were given to them by Yunke-Z for protection. After seeing Zixin, Yunke-Z nodded and signaled her to come over. Zixin took a deep breath as she looked at Xianfeng in the corner with deep hatred in her eyes. Then she made her way to Yunke-Z. After Zixin arrived, Xianfeng's eyes never left her. His expression was very ugly, and he revealed powerful killing intent. When he looked at Zixin, there was a flash of painful struggle in his eyes. As Xianfeng stared at Zixin, he said, "Word for word, bitch, Zixin!" Zixin looked at Xianfeng and didn't say a word, but the hatred in her eyes was sky high. Xianfeng's breathing was getting rough. He looked at Yunke-Z before forcing himself to calm down. He then looked gloomily at Zixin, before letting out a sneer and closing his eyes. Just at this moment, another figure came up from the foot of the mountain and arrived at the top. The moment this figure appeared, a majority of the people on the peak looked at him. Xianfeng suddenly opened his eyes and a hint of coldness flashed across them. Zixin immediately lowered her head. She backed up a few steps to stand behind Yunke-Z. Yunke-Z's eyes lit up and he revealed a smile of intrigue. Zhou Wutai let out a sigh. He was chasing after Wang Lin before to tell him something. However, he didn't expect to meet Yunke-Z. The person that arrived at the top of the mountain was Wang Lin. After Wang Lin arrived, the eyes of the old man with the little monkey flashed red for a moment. He stared at Wang Lin and let out a creepy smile. The little monkey on his shoulder looked at Wang Lin with a gaze filled with unhidden hostility. The person wearing the mask also turned his head to look at Wang Lin. His eyes were filled with confusion and then with clarity. He nodded at Wang Lin and didn't say a word. Wang Lin looked like a mess right now. His clothes were extremely worn out. Earlier, when he was going up the mountain, the second collapse happened. He had a hard time with all the rifts appearing. So in the end, he dug a hole in the side of the mountain and didn't dare to come out until the collapse was over. If he had stayed in the air, he would have died. Brother Wang. Sing Niu. Wang Lin. 3 different calls came from different people at the top of the mountain. The person who called him Brother Wang was naturally Zhou Wutai. The person who said Sang Niu was Qianfeng, and as for the last ancient voice, it was Yunke. Wang Lin calmly looked at everyone until his gaze finally landed on Yunke. This was his first time meeting Yunke after they departed last time. The messy look from before was completely gone. The current Yunke was similar to Zhuke. Wang Lin looked at Yunke and Yunke looked at Wang Lin. Both were silent. Shortly after, Wang Lin bitterly smiled and said, "Junior greets senior." Yunke let out a sigh. He shook his head and said, "You also came here." Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and rays of black light flew out of it. Under his command, they flew toward Yunke and turned into wood carvings when they got near him. Fans celebrating the new year, please join the VIDEO fan battle team. If you need to complete a mission, Leo can praise everyone in the chapter narration. Chapter 459, Man of Iron and Stone. These wood carvings were all the same, and they were all of a very handsome young man. Senior's request has been completed by Junior. After that, Wang Lin sat down in a corner and no longer spoke. Yunke's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and all the wood carvings disappeared. He looked at Wang Lin one more time before turning his gaze back to the door. Wang Lin wasn't interested in how Yunke was able to enter this place. After all, the Forsaken Immortal clan had been around for a very long time, and he wasn't the type who had to find the answer to everything. Wang Lin had already given up on getting the cultivation planet crystal. He just wanted his soul piece back. After all, this crystal was connected to all living things on planet Suzaku. Wang Lin hadn't reached the point where he was willing to sacrifice the lives of everyone in the world for his own selfishness. Of course, if someone had enmity with him, that was a different story. Killing everyone who had the blood of the Tang family showed that Wang Lin wasn't a saint by any stretch. After he sat down, his eyes lit up as he looked toward Qianfeng. At this moment, Qianfeng also looked toward Wang Lin and their gazes crossed. Wang Lin revealed a cold smile before shifting his gaze toward the man with the mask. The man looked unfamiliar, and Wang Lin wasn't able to recognize him. Finally, his gaze shifted to the strange old man who had left behind that creepy smile. Who exactly is he? The danger Wang Lin felt from the old man was several times greater than what he felt from Yunke. A hint of coldness flashed across Wang Lin's eyes as he stared at the old man. When the old man noticed Wang Lin's gaze, he looked toward Wang Lin and revealed a dark smile. This smile felt extremely familiar to Wang Lin, but he was sure that he had never seen this person in his life. Just at this moment, a ray of light came the distance. There was a beautiful figure inside that ray of light. She dodged a rift and landed on the spirit mountain. This woman was very beautiful. The bottom edge of her dress looked like waves moving up and down, making her look like a celestial as she stood on the top of the spirit mountain. The moment Wang Lin laid eyes on this woman, his face sank. This woman wasn't anyone but Liu Mei. In fact, one thing Liu Mei said was right. She and Wang Lin were the same type of person. Deep inside each of them lied a sliver of ruthlessness. Wang Lin only took one look before withdrawing his gaze. His expression was cold, no different than how he faced Liu Mei before. After Qianfeng saw Liu Mei, he revealed a look of joy. He thought that with her here, his chance of getting his soul piece back had increased 1-fold. Liu Mei revealed a trace of sadness as she raised her foot and walked toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't have any good feelings toward this woman. The thing that happened in that dream-like state was only an accident. He coldly looked at her and said, "I don't want anyone to bother me. Don't come closer." Liu Mei stopped. She looked at Wang Lin and asked, "Could you really be made of iron and stone?" Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he coldly said, "Leave." Liu Mei started laughing at him. Then what status does Li Muan have in your heart? Wang Lin's eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, Scram! Although your domain has reached its completion, if I wanted to kill you, it wouldn't be hard. Don't start courting death. The purpose of Liu Mei's words was to ruin Wang Lin's stout heart, but she didn't to know that Li Muan was taboo to Wang Lin. He would kill anyone who mentioned her name. If it wasn't for the fact that this was not a good place, he would have already taken out the soul flag and killed this woman. Wang Lin cared a lot about his few relationships, but he was cold to strangers. He was a man made of iron and stone. This wasn't false at all. Liu Mei faintly smiled, then she turned around and walked toward Qianfeng. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and then saw the old man looking at him. Could this person be possessed? Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat. He thought that this was one possibility. If not, there was no way this person would make him feel such familiarity. If Wang Lin was only a mortal, he wouldn't have thought this much from just a smile. Even if he were a low-level cultivator, he wouldn't have considered the possibility. But Wang Lin was an early-stage soul transformation cultivator. Even among the stars, they were considered powerful and couldn't be underestimated. If it was before the celestial realm was broken, soul transformation cultivators would be the same as celestials. Their bodies would be made of celestial spiritual energy, and they would possess some mysterious senses. These senses were very strange. Only the powerful cultivators could feel this. If one's cultivation level was high enough, with just a thought, they would vaguely see future events. The mysteriousness of these techniques was impossible to describe. At this moment, Wang Lin had this feeling. He knew he wasn't wrong. That creepy smile was very familiar. I have cultivated for 600 years and met a lot of enemies, but for one to be able to make me feel like this with just a smile, there is only one. Although Wang Lin appeared calm on the surface, his heart was in turmoil. He took a deep breath and lowered his head. Then his pupils shrank and his eyes revealed a trace of dread. Tu si is demon, tuo sen. Wang Lin felt his body became cold. When speaking of the people Wang Lin dreaded the most on planet Suzaku, Zhuke wasn't even number one. The number one spot belonged to the demon-like young man he angered back in the land of the ancient god when he was only a core formation cultivator, Tuo Sen. The inheritance of the ancient god was split into two, the inheritance of power and the inheritance of knowledge. Among the two inheritances, the inheritance of knowledge contained all of Tusi's knowledge, like how to become an ancient god, the ancient god tactic, and more. There was even a giant star map in Tusi's memories. This was a map of everywhere he had traveled. These memories were very helpful to Wang Lin. Without the inheritance of knowledge, Wang Lin's original body wouldn't have been able to cultivate to a 3-star ancient god. But memories were only memories. They came without any power. There were many techniques in Tusi's memory that could instantly destroy planet Suzaku. He knew the chance and methods of all these techniques, but he didn't have the power to use them. He needed to at least reach the 7-star stage to use these techniques. This was why he could only take it step by step to make his original body stronger and finally use the full power of Tusi's memories. Similarly, Tuo Sen was in the same situation. He inherited Tusi's power, the power of an 8-star ancient god. But even though he had power, he couldn't use it to its full potential. It would be the same if his body had no meridians. No matter how much power his body held, he couldn't use it. All of the techniques he controlled were techniques he learned after he was born. Through these, he was able to use a bit of his inheritance of power, but right now he was only able to use a bit of it, so he was unable to display the full power of his inheritance. To be more accurate, the limit of the power Tuo Sen could control was only as much as a 5-star ancient god could use. Compared to Tu Si, who was once an 8-star ancient god, this power was simply too weak. However, compared to all the life on Suzaku, a 5-star ancient god was an existence of legends, an existence that was one whole level higher than ascendant cultivators. Tuo Sen's greatest wish is to obtain the inheritance of knowledge. After that, he would only need time to absorb it all, refine his body, and become a real 8-star ancient god. At that moment, even those old monsters of the Cultivation Alliance would dread him. If it wasn't for what Wang Lin did inside the land of the ancient god that day, Tuo Sen would have been able to escape. To be more accurate, he was Tu Si. but he was only a piece of the demonic thoughts that appeared when 2C failed his divine sense division technique. He was determined to catch Wang Lin. Wang Lin raised his head and casually scanned the old man. This time his gaze focused on the little monkey. After having an idea this time, Wang Lin was immediately able to see through them. The red light that appeared in the small monkey's eyes were the unique aura from the people inside the sea of blood. Wang Lin felt very bitter in his heart. He thought of 6 desired devil lord, hunchback Meng, ancient emperor, and the rest of them. All of them either died or became cultivators in the sea of blood. In addition, there were those ancient cultivators. They were born before any cultivators arrived on planet Suzaku. Those people's cultivation levels were also very high. However, with Wang Lin's current experience, he was able to guess that they hadn't gone past the ascendant stage. It must have been due to some restrictions set up by the land of the ancient god that prevented their cultivation levels from increasing in all these years. However, within their hands were some techniques unknown to the future generations. Once they used them, their power would sharply increase. Tuo Sen he shouldn't be fully free yet, or there would be no need to possess someone like this. He would have come out to find me personally. However, why did he not come here instead of hunting me down? Could he also be after the cultivation planet crystal? Wang Lin's heart trembled. Could it be that the cultivation planet crystal could free him completely of the shackles of the land of the ancient god? Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Just at this moment, the spirit mountain began to shake once more and a series of thunderous roars echoed from the sky. The collapse appeared for the 3rd time. A large amount of the inner parts of the Suzaku tomb collapsed into countless rifts. Cultivators and forsaken immortal clan members who weren't able to find the spirit mountain all died. It's time to double the likes for the video, wishing for more likes for the video. Chapter 460, The Metal Armored Burly Man. Even the life forms made of soul pieces disappeared along with the collapse. The death of the life forms caused a series of chain reactions. Right now some mortals, cultivators, and even beasts on planet Suzaku began to die. These deaths came silently. They were impossible to avoid and could only be considered a calamity. Fortunately, not a lot of people died, but if the cultivation planet crystal collapses, the entire planet will be dead. Zhukezi's mad laughter echoed within Mount Suzaku. He was currently sitting inside Mount Suzaku, and his eyes were filled with madness. He revealed a cruel smile and muttered to himself, "My junior apprentice brother, how are you enjoying the game?" The game has only just started and has not yet reached its climax. My good disciple, Qianfeng, I hope you will use that treasure I gave you. Once you use that treasure, the climax of this game can start. On the spirit mountain in the inner part of the Suzaku tomb, the collapse this time lasted 60 breaths of time. Even more cracks appeared on the door, covering almost the entire door. Just at this moment, Xianxia suddenly moved and appeared next to the giant door. Then a straw hat appeared in his hand. He hit the straw hat and it immediately scattered into countless tattoos. The tattoos all glowed brightly as they smashed into the door like meteors. A series of rumbling sounds came from the door, and the cracks quickly increased. Xianxia loudly shouted, "Attack!" The 2 from the forsaken immortal clan quickly flew into the air and attacked the door. Just at this moment, the old man's eyes started glowing red and revealed a sneer filled with disdain. He pointed his hand to the air and said, "Greed, ignorance." The moment he said those words, the 2 forsaken immortal clan members that were attacking suddenly started trembling. Their eyes released a demonic glow and a green and purple aura started pouring out of the 2's bodies. The old man then said, "Explode." With 2 bangs, the 2 forsaken immortal clan members exploded and the shockwave collided with the door. The moment Wang Lin saw this spell, he recognized it as the spell of 6 desired devil lord. The door shook violently after the 2 forsaken immortal clan members exploded and more cracks appeared on it. Xianxia suddenly turned around and looked at the old man. He let out a snort before letting out a roar and pressing on the door. Bang! A heaven-shattering explosion echoed across the Suzaku tomb. On the left side of the door, a small piece fell off and a ray of golden light shot out. It pierced into the sky and remained there. Xianxia flew into the hole in a ray of red light. Then the old man quickly followed him in. Then the remaining people on the spirit mountain activated various spells and charged inside. Wang Lin was the 4th person to enter the hole. When he took a step inside, He created a cloud of smoke and disappeared inside it. Inside the door was a golden sea. This sea was very large with no end in sight. The only other thing in sight was a golden island far away in the horizon. There was a building in this island. It was a very extravagant-looking palace that released a golden glow. After Xianxia went through the door, his eyes released a mysterious light, and he quickly flew toward that island. The old man quickly followed. His feet moved, and he quickly flew toward the palace. He was only about 300 feet behind Xianxia. The eyes of the monkey on his shoulder glowed brightly and revealed an excited expression. As for everyone else, both Qian Feng and Liu Mei were flying toward the island at top speed. Zhou Wutai and Zixin hesitated a bit. They slowed down and didn't rush to be in front. As for the person wearing the mask, he didn't even look at the island, but instead looked at the sea below him and began to ponder. Wang Lin's figure moved like lightning toward the palace. In an instant, there were several rays of light moving across the sky and sonic booms could be heard. Xianxia arrived above the palace on the island and immediately charged inside. At this moment, the old man's eyes glowed bright red as he grabbed the monkey and let out a roar. Then he threw the monkey very hard, and it used the force of the throw to jump. Its body completely disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was a bit faster than Xianxia. Xianxia's expression darkened as he let out a snort and quickly charged into the palace after it. However, just at this moment, the palace suddenly shook and rays of dazzling light shot out from it. Xianxia was forced out of the palace with an ugly expression. He was shocked. As for the little monkey, it let out a few squeaks as it was pushed back out as well. The red light in its eyes reached out like a 1-inch long lightsaber. It looked very shocking. The monkey didn't return to the old man. It sat there and stared viciously at the palace. At the same time, waves of deep rumbling sounds came from the palace as a burly man in golden armor walked out. This burly man in golden armor looked very majestic, and the large golden sword in his hand was emitting a golden light. A head of black hair flowed behind him. With one jump, he arrived above the palace. He coldly looked at everyone and swung the sword. The entire golden sea rumbled as a large wave came crashing toward the island. In the blink of an eye, the island was submerged by the golden sea and disappeared. Xianxia's expression was ugly. He was about to sink into the golden sea when the burly man in golden armor swung his sword. A 100-foot-long wave of sword energy came crashing toward Xianxia. Xianxia let out a roar. His hair started moving without any wind, and he pointed at the air. A red light appeared where he was pointing to and collided with the sword energy. With a bang, Xianxia's body moved like a meteor into the sea and disappeared. The burly man with golden armor didn't chase but directed his gaze toward the little monkey. Sword energy gathered on his golden sword, and he was about to swing it. The little monkey's eyes started to glow even redder. The red light was now 3 inches long, making it look extremely fierce. The burly man with golden armor was startled and stopped his swing. The little monkey smiled and moved to the old man's side. They were about to enter the sea. When the burly man in golden armor looked at the old man, his eyes lit up and the sword energy that stopped earlier moved once more. A 100-foot-long wave of sword energy shot out at the old man, but before it even got close to him, the sea below him parted. The old man let out a roar and his eyes started glowing red. As soon as the sword energy closed in, a red, illusionary image came out of his body. The illusionary image was so barely visible. It was clear that it was a person, but whether it was male or female was unclear. The image raised its hand and stopped the sword energy. Then it waved its hand and the sword energy was thrown aside into the sea. The burly man with golden armor looked at the old man, nodded, and didn't look at him anymore. The illusionary image returned to the old man. The old man's body trembled as his eyes glowed red, and he went into the sea. The little monkey followed him into the sea. Wang Lin carefully watched this scene unfold. With his smarts, he was instantly able to tell that the burly man in golden armor meant no harm. However, to go into the sea to search for the palace, one must be able to take one swing from him to prove that they are qualified. Wang Lin's eyes lit up like he was able to see through some secret. When the old man and monkey were separated, the burly man in golden armor was clearly ready to deal with them individually. But when they moved together, the burly man in golden armor only attacked once. It seemed the burly man in golden armor had tested them as one. Just at this moment, The burly man in golden armor's eyes lit up and he swung his sword. A ray of sword energy landed in the sea, causing a series of rumbling sounds to spread throughout the water. A large wave came out from the sea, creating a wave that launched Zhou Wutai and Zixin into the air. They stopped 1,000 feet above the sea. Zhou Wutai's face was pale, and he started coughing out blood. As for Zixin, her face was filled with shock. The two of them were hiding under the sea and secretly moving forward. They didn't expect to be stopped by the burly man with golden armor. They were forced to retreat when the sword energy came, but even so, they weren't fast enough and were injured. The burly man with golden armor didn't chase but turned his gaze toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. That sword energy was as powerful as an attack from an ascendant cultivator. This was why the old man released his soul to resist against it. Only Xianxia could block the attack and borrow it to enter the sea. However, this burly man with golden armor didn't have any ill intentions, or else there would be no way for Zhou Wutai and Zixin to be alive right now. As usual, 2 chapters at noon, about 10 minutes apart, and 2 more at 8 in the evening, 10 minutes apart. If anything comes up, the other will be informed. Longing for the like button for the video. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 461, Killing Intent. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He knew that he couldn't resist the man in the golden armor with his current cultivation level unless he brings out the ascendant soul. At this moment, Qianfeng and Liu Mei also frowned. Clearly the two of them also saw through this. Qianfeng's eyes lit up and he suddenly said, "Seng Yu, how about the 3 of us work together to block the sword energy from the man in golden armor?" A hint of coldness appeared in Wang Lin's eyes as he nodded and said, "Okay." The reason Qianfeng asked Wang Lin for help was because he had no choice. It was clear that even with him and Liu Mei, they weren't confident in being able to resist that attack. If they couldn't resist the attack, then they couldn't go search for the palace. Xianxia and the old man were already ahead of them. If they were any slower, it might be too late. Now with Wang Lin on their side, the chances of the 3 of them succeeding was higher. Qianfeng didn't underestimate Wang Lin just because he was at the early stage of soul transformation. In fact, in his heart he believed that Wang Lin was someone who was qualified to fight him. He also knew that the 1 billion soul flag that Wang Lin possessed was something that could instantly kill him, so he dreaded Wang Lin deeply. This is why he had Red Butterfly stall Wang Lin. It was so that he could get the cultivation planet crystal without having to face him. However, after arriving at the Spirit Mountain, he realized that there were several barriers before he could get to the crystal. He no longer thought of Wang Lin as a weakling like he did when he first met him. Now he saw him as his equal. But deep in Qianfeng's heart, there was still a powerful sense of pride. In his view, if Wang Lin didn't have the 1 billion soul flag, then there was no way Wang Lin could be compared with him. After hearing Wang Lin's response, Qianfeng pondered a bit and said, "Fellow cultivator Seng, the 2 of us will go first, and then we'll let my junior apprentice sister take over. What do you think?" Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he looked at Qianfeng and Liu Mei. Just at this moment, Liu Mei also looked toward him, let out a smile, and was about to speak when Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and said, "No need to be so complicated. I'll go first, and then the 2 of you can follow." Qianfeng was startled, and his eyes lit up. To be the first to go meant that not only would he have to deal with the attack at full power, but he would also have to pay attention to any possible backstabbing from the people behind them. It was a very dangerous thing. The reason Qianfeng said that the 2 of them would go together was because he was afraid that Wang Lin would worry too much and hold back. And with Liu Mei going after them, even if Wang Lin secretly attacked, then he wouldn't need to worry. Qianfeng decided that dealing with the sword energy would be their first priority this time. Dealing with Wang Lin could wait. As soon as he heard Wang Lin volunteer to go first, he was a bit suspicious. However, this was not the time to ponder over such things, so he said, "If that is so, then we will depend on fellow cultivator Sang." Liu Mei slightly frowned. She felt like there was something strange about this. After pondering for a bit, she looked toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin didn't even look at her as he flew toward the golden-armored man. Lu Mei and Qian Feng followed behind. The three of them moved forward in a formation. At the moment the three of them got close, the golden-armored man's eyes became serious, and he lifted his arm. Bright light gathered on the golden sword, creating a blinding golden light. Then, he viciously swung the sword. A 100-foot-long wave of sword energy that looked like it could split the heavens instantly closed in, followed by the sonic boom of the sound barrier breaking. The only sound that could be heard was the sword energy piercing through the sky. It moved very quickly and immediately landed. The sea below them parted due to the pressure of the sword energy, creating a deep gorge. When Wang Lin saw Yun Kezi and the old man hold the sword energy off, he only felt it from the side and didn't participate. Now that he was facing it himself, he could feel the destructive force inside this sword energy. When facing this destructive force, even his origin soul began to tremble and show signs of instability. Not only this, but every part of his body felt like they were being pinned down by a giant mountain. He wasn't unfamiliar with this feeling. It was the exact same feeling he had from the pressure of the spirit vein below the soul refining sect. Only this feeling was thousands of times stronger. Before the sword energy even collided with him, blood already started coming out from the corner of Wang Lin's mouth, but his eyes showed no signs of giving up. When he noticed Wang Lin's current state, Qian Feng paused for a moment and began to ponder. Should he take this moment to kill Seng Niu and take the 1 billion soul flag, or help resist the sword energy? This idea flashed through his mind, and he made his decision. He would kill Wang Lin and take the soul flag. With the soul flag, he would have more than enough power to resist the sword energy. All of this happened very quickly in his mind. After making up his mind, Qian Feng laughed and said, "Don't panic, fellow cultivator Song. I am coming." Qian Feng moved forward like lightning. This attack absolutely had to succeed, so Qian Feng wasn't in a rush. He had to get close to hit Wang Lin with an attack that he will never forget. Qian Feng knew that he had to succeed in one attack, or else Wang Lin would have time to call out the 1 billion soul flag. If that happened, things wouldn't go well. With Liu Mei's smarts, she immediately saw through Qian Feng's intentions and hesitated. Then her eyes suddenly became cold. She didn't follow but waited there. She was a ruthless person, so it didn't matter to her. Plus, if Qian Feng killed Wang Lin's aura would be removed from her last illusion. This would make it easier for her in the future, because it was basically like removing an inner demon that she would have to face in the future. At this moment, the sword energy arrived right above Wang Lin's head. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he let out a snort. Since he was the one who agreed to go first, how could he not have considered Qian Feng's change of heart? All of this was part of his plan. From the moment the sword energy was sent out, and as soon as Qian Feng started flying over, Wang Lin was secretly calculating Qian Feng's speed. When Qian Feng was 100 feet away from Wang Lin let out a laugh and slapped his bag of holding. A pagoda suddenly flew out of his bag of holding and appeared before him. Zhou Yi's early-stage ascendant divine sense came out from the pagoda. The sword energy couldn't help but pause for a moment after coming into contact with the divine sense. Using this pause, Wang Lin laughed, called back the pagoda, and charged toward the sea. However, he intentionally maintained a speed low enough to stay within 100 feet of Qian Feng. The golden-armored man's eyes became serious, but he didn't attack Wang Lin and instead looked at Qian Feng. Now that there was no ascendant-level divine sense stopping the sword energy, it landed on Qian Feng's body. Qian Feng's expression changed greatly. He didn't even have the time to wonder why the sword energy didn't attack Wang Lin and went after himself instead. At this moment, he let out a roar, slapped his bag of holding, and took out a red awl. A bright red light came from the awl and charged toward the sword energy. Wang Lin's face revealed a hint of mockery. When the old man and monkey resisted the sword energy, Wang Lin felt that something was off. He concluded that the golden-armored man must have determined that the two were a pair and only sent out one sword energy. Wang Lin calculated that the distance between the old man and monkey was about 100 feet, and assumed that if he were that close to Qian Feng, the golden-armored man would consider them a pair. If they were within range of each other, the sword energy would attack whoever was closest to it. This was why Wang Lin declined the plan of him and Xianfeng going first with Liu Mei coming in second. Because with that, although he would be close to Xianfeng, he would be too close. If he were to make any abnormal movements, Xianfeng would notice and be on guard. This was why he decided to go first himself. Although Xianfeng was suspicious, he still fell for the trap. In fact, even if Xianfeng didn't agree to Wang Lin's plan, or hadn't suggested that the three of them work together, Wang Lin would still have faced it alone. He didn't believe that Xianfeng would pass up the chance to kill him if he were to put himself in a dangerous position. Although if that were the case, it would be more difficult to lure Xianfeng to come within 100 feet of him. However, Wang Lin still had a plan B and was 80% confident in luring Xianfeng close enough. Then, Xianfeng suggested the three of them work together, and this confirmed Wang Lin's suspicion. The Xianfeng indeed wasn't able to resist his urges and gave up on trying to work together. He was going to use helping to resist the sword energy as an excuse to get closer, but didn't realize that Wang Lin had already seen through it all. Zhouye's divine sense from the pagoda played a big part in this. This stopped the sword energy enough for Wang Lin to get away, making Xianfeng the closest person to the sword energy. Although this took a long time to explain, it all happened in the blink of an eye. At the moment the sword energy swept toward Xianfeng, Wang Lin stopped. He didn't fly away but coldly looked at Liu Mei in the distance. Liu Mei was at the back and was a bit startled when she saw the situation change. She seemed to have realized something and quickly chased after Wang Lin. When he saw Liu Mei getting closer, Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he charged out. This time, he moved farther than 100 feet from Xianfeng. As soon as Wang Lin was over 100 feet away from Xianfeng, the golden-armored man's eyes became serious, and he quickly swung his sword twice, sending one wave of sword energy toward Wang Lin and the other one toward Liu Mei. Killing intent filled Wang Lin's eyes. He stopped flying toward the sea and teleported to within 100 feet of Liu Mei the moment the sword energy closed in. Liu Mei's expression changed. She seemed to have realized something. Although she wasn't sure, she seemed to have guessed the situation from Wang Lin's actions. She was about to teleport away so Wang Lin would be above her, making him the one to take the blow of the sword energy. Mid-month already, brothers. Do you have likes for the VIDE already? Don't hold back wishing for those likes. Chapter 462, Yi Wu Yu. Wang Lin let out a sneer. At the moment she was about to teleport, he touched his bag of holding and several time domain carvings flew out. Time! With a roar from Wang Lin, the carvings all exploded and a powerful time domain surged out. Although Liu Mei's domain had reached its completion, this time domain was carefully prepared by Wang Lin. It was too weak to harm Liu Mei or even slow her down by much, but in a critical situation like this, it would be fatal. Liu Mei's body slowed down, allowing Wang Lin to move below her. At this moment, the two sword energies suddenly fused into one and descended like crazy toward Liu Mei. Killing intent filled Wang Lin's eyes as he pointed at Liu Mei. A strand of restriction gas came from his finger and shot toward her. Wang Lin didn't even wait for the result. He knew that time was of the essence, so he charged into the sea without any hesitation. Once he entered the sea, he saw the giant palace emitting a golden glow. Wang Lin charged toward the palace at top speed. There was a mysterious power within the sea. Wang Lin didn't even need to test it to know that there was something preventing teleportation. He had experienced this at other mysterious places before, so he knew what this power felt like. When he was about to enter the palace, a series of roars came from the surface and the seawater around Wang Lin quickly parted ways. A 100-foot-long wave of sword energy descended from the sky and quickly chased after him. As the sword energy got closer and closer, Wang Lin could even feel its powerful aura. A sharp pain suddenly came from the top of his head. He ruthlessly clenched his teeth. He saw that he was only 1,000 feet away from the palace, but the sword energy was almost upon him. A trace blood came from the top of Wang Lin's head, and the pain increased. 900 feet, 800 feet, 700 feet, 600 feet. He was getting closer and closer, but the sword energy was closing in above his head. The roar of the sword energy seemed to echo inside Wang Lin's brain. As Wang Lin rushed toward the palace, he coughed out a mouthful of blood, touched the bag of holding, and took out the axe. He suddenly let out a roar, turned around and placed the axe before him. At this moment, the sword energy arrived and suddenly landed on the axe. Wang Lin's face became red. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and his origin soul shook. He touched his bag of holding and the pagoda flew out. Zhou Yi's domain quickly spread out and the sword energy paused. Using this pause, Wang Lin charged out and crossed the 500 feet in an instant to enter the palace. As soon as he entered the palace, the sword energy trembled and then disappeared. Blood was seeping out of Wang Lin's mouth as he put away the axe and pagoda. Then, while sitting down in the lotus position, he took out a large amount of pills and devoured them before feeling a painful sting from his entire body. He took out a piece of celestial jade and looked at it before throwing in his mouth. Then he felt the celestial spiritual energy fill his body. Thanks to the rush of celestial spiritual energy, Wang Lin felt his body become light. The celestial spiritual energy instantly suppressed all of his injuries. Shortly after, he stood up and with one step rushed into the depths of the palace. As for above the sea, the sword energy was closing in on Liu Mei. Just as she was about to dodge, the restriction closed in from behind her. This made her beautiful expression change. She clenched her teeth and spat out a white mist. A white ribbon danced inside the white mist and with one whipping motion it destroyed the restriction. This white ribbon quickly wrapped around her and moved her 10,000 feet away from the sword energy. The sword energy missed and then disappeared. That golden armored man didn't attack anymore. His only job was to guard this place and only allow those that are qualified enter the palace. There was only one requirement, and that was to be able to resist the power of one blow. Qianfeng was also in a very sorry state right now. Luckily, as long as one leaves the area, the attack stops. Qianfeng's expression was fierce as he roared, "Seng Yu, I swear that I will tear you to pieces. If I violate this oath, then I will die a painful death." Liu Mei silently stared at the sea with a gloomy expression. Seeing that Qianfeng was still cursing and roaring, she frowned and said, "Shut up! If it wasn't for you having malicious intentions and the three of us really worked together, we would already be inside the palace rather than here." Qianfeng's expression was fierce. He looked ruthlessly at Liu Mei and said, "Do you think I didn't notice how the two of you were flirting and eyeing each other? Junior apprentice sister, don't forget what you promised me." Liu Mei coldly looked at Qianfeng and said, "With Yunke there, it will be hard for Seng Niu to get his soul piece back. Yunke won't let him succeed so easily." Qianfeng took a deep breath, then he withdrew his fierce expression, touched his bag of holding, and said, "The old man gave me something that was meant to be used against the 1 billion soul flag. Since it can affect the soul flag, it should have some effect on ascendant cultivators as well. After Yunke comes out, I'll use this. I only want my soul piece, but if he still won't give it, I'll just go all out." Inside the palace under the sea, what appeared before Wang Lin was a very large hallway. There were several lamps around the hall that were flicking and releasing a very demonic glow. This light wasn't produced by fire but by a mysterious substance that Wang Lin had never seen before. The dim light caused this hallway to bend and turn, creating a very strange feeling. Wang Lin revealed a cautious expression as he carefully moved forward. This hallway seemed to have no end. He had walked for a long time, and the hallway still looked the same. Wang Lin didn't dare to spread his divine sense out too far. When he first arrived, he spread it out, and some of it disappeared like it was devoured by something. As a result, Wang Lin became very cautious. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Lin saw the flashing of spells in the distance. He stopped moving and carefully spread his divine sense forward. But what he saw made his expression change. When his divine sense reached the end of the hallway, what he saw was a large open area. There was a very tall tower at the center of this open area. At the top of the tower was a throne, and there was someone with a head full of black hair sitting on it. This person looked middle-aged and seemed very normal, but he gave off a very majestic aura. His eyes were closed, and there was no sign of life from his body. It was clearly a dead person. However, his body was emitting a terrifying aura which surrounded the area. The moment Wang Lin's divine sense saw this person, he suddenly had the urge to bow toward him. He was forced to activate some celestial spiritual energy to suppress this urge. There seemed to be a mysterious power here that would shake the heart of anyone that passed by. Before this person floated an object. It was a ball of purple light. This light shined on the middle-aged man, and left a dark shadow behind him. However, the light was currently dim and flickering as if it could go out at any time. At the moment Wang Lin's divine sense touched the ball of light, a powerful force suddenly came crashing toward his divine sense, so he quickly retreated. In the hallway, Wang Lin's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with terror. The first Suzaku Yi Wu Yu. He was immediately able to guess the identity of the middle-aged man. As for the purple ball of light, it was the cultivation planet crystal. However, Wang Lin felt like something was wrong. Although it looked exactly like what Situnen described, he didn't feel that connection with his soul piece when his divine sense touched it. Since you have arrived, come in. Xianxia's voice came from down the hallway. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. When his divine sense went into the room, he saw the first Suzaku and the cultivation planet crystal, but he didn't see Xianxia nor the old man, both of whom were already here. Wang Lin pondered a bit before walking forward. Shortly after, he arrived at the end of the hallway and walked into the large open space. Now that he had personally come here, the feeling of shock was even stronger. Compared to the 1,000-foot tower, he suddenly felt very small. Wang Lin took a deep breath, then his eyes lit up and saw Xianxia's figure in the corner. Xianxia's face was pale. He was sitting cross-legged and blood was seeping out from the corner of his mouth. He looked much weaker than normal. He looked at Wang Lin and then hoarsely said, with a smile, "I was right about you. You were indeed the third person to get there." Wang Lin revealed a look of caution and asked, "What about him?" Xianxia's expression was ugly as he said, "I used a formation to trap him. He should still be trapped inside. Wang Lin, I am gravely injured, so go get the cultivation planet crystal for me. Whether it is for my forsaken immortal clan or the cultivators, I can let the cultivation planet crystal collapse." "Oh?" Wang Lin calmly looked at Xianxia and asked, "You want me to get the cultivation planet crystal?" Xianxia took a deep breath and let out a sigh. "I know you are very cautious. You can check my body with your divine sense. You'll find that I'm almost completely out of power. That old man is not from planet Suzaku. His techniques are all very strange and I can trap him for long. Once he gets free, he will be able to steal the cultivation planet crystal, and at that moment, everyone on planet Suzaku will be faced with a crisis." Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He raised his head and looked at the ball of purple light before the first Suzaku. Without any hesitation, he backed up. With speed several times faster than when he entered, Wang Lin flew toward the hallway like a madman. Xianxia's eyes lit up and he immediately disappeared. When he reappeared, he was before the passage, blocking Wang Lin. He gloomily said, "What are you running for?" Wang Lin's eyes lit up, then he backed up a few steps and stared at Xianxia. He waved his right hand, and the 1 billion soul flag appeared. Then he calmly said, "Junior doesn't want to die yet. Mid-month and it's been forgotten. Hoping for the like button for the video, tears start to flow. Is there still time?"